Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Betrayed and Joins Trihexa with Multiversal Allies Part 2. Before we start, please go support Issei for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Chapter 3. A strange day and forming the team. Deadpool search. Location: base in the cave. Issei's office. Time: 6:40 p.m. Issei, who stayed in his office sorting out the profile records of his next team until very late at night, only to think that it was crazy to have a group that was potentially unstable, as many would say, because one of them is mentally insane, another is a homicidal psychopath with no mercy for anything or anyone. Another would not have patience with the first, which would cause them to fight constantly, and the last was the most acceptable of the four because he was somewhat serious, cold-minded, but apparently he was a bit of a comedian and was also patient enough to endure the first of the four. But for Issei it was an exceptional group because based on each ability they had, they were perfect, each of them covered an essential factor, so he immediately began to think about how he could make them enter his mercenary group, but at his will, because he did not want to force them to enter, he would only see if they wanted to, but Issei would not make it easy for them. So he decided to look for the weakest among them to offer him the job that, well, the four of them are like mercenaries in the case of three of them. It started with the one with a suit similar to that of swordman in red and black with a mask with wide eyes, katanas with black handles, pistols. Nah. Please tell me what kind of pistol Deadpool uses. Thanks, among other weapons that no one knows where you keep them. When she found his profile to find out where he was staying, she saw that he was in. So with that in mind, he set Deadpool's recruitment in motion. He got up from his desk chair and headed for the door. When he left his office, he walked through the base. During his walk he started talking to his two tenants. Issei. Guys, do you think it's okay with them? He said, a little tired of reading many profiles. Greg. Well, for me it's fine. The bad thing is that this, how to say it, would be a little chaotic, or rather there would be pandemonium with them together, to put it that simple, said the dragon with a touch of wisdom. When Issei was going to answer, he heard another voice. Ascalon. Why do you hesitate so much? You are very strong, you can control it, I think, he said with the sword with confidence, but he clung to the last thing he said. Issei. You know you two don't help me much, he said monotonously. Greg. Well, you ask and we answered. What's wrong with that, said the dragon. Ascalon. What the lizard with super developed wings said, he said mockingly at the end. Greg. What the buck did you say to me, Rusty Knife? Greg shouted, offended. Ascalon. What do you mean, Rusty Knife? Piece of meat with legs, countered Ascalon. Greg. What did you heard, Toothpick? Ascalon. Tadpole. Greg. Dull trash. Issei. Enough is enough, Issei shouted firmly to silence them. Ascalon and Greg. The beginning. Issei. I can't believe that these are the powerful dragon gels and the strongest dragon slayer, he said with a disappointed face. Before that, both Dreg and Ascalon inside their mental space became depressed with a dark aura surrounding them, making circles on the floor, muttering things like, yes, we are powerful, or like they don't understand us, and it was that toothpick lizard's fault at that. Issei, with his face monotonously, had a drop of sweat come out on the back of his neck. Issei. Well, leaving that for later, I don't believe the appearance in his human form, Ascalon Gaiho, and then the boosted gear appeared, and then Ascalon came out, but then it shone with a white light with gold, causing Issei to close his eyes a little, and when the light stopped, a blond man in casual clothes appeared. Ascalon. It's good to have a human body, he said happily, but suddenly he lost his mind for a reason that he himself knew. Greg. Yes, it's good to get out from inside there, said Dreg, who came out of the boosted gear to stretch in his dragon chibi form, but with a mocking face looking at Ascalon. Ascalon. You do this to annoy me, right? He said, closing his eyes with a serious face. Dreg. Yes, he said it simply. Ascalon. Piece of meat with legs, he said in a whisper, turning his back. Dreg. Toothpicks with legs, he said, turning his face away. Ascalon. Do you want me to prove why I am known for killing your kind? Dragon, he said, opening his eyes that were red with a challenging look. Greg. Oh, so you want to fight a celestial dragon, huh? Dragon Slayer sword, he said to increase his size a little to the size of Issei and Ascalon, and looking Ascalon in the eyes with the same look as him. But before Armageddon broke out between these fighters, Issei, with high speed, gave Ascalon a very firm, accurate, closed-handed blow in the stomach, knocking the air out of him, but at the same time he stepped on Dreg's head, sinking it to the ground. The two were left in a few words. They were beaten by Issei in the kindest way possible. Ascalon writhing in a fetal position on the hallway floor, holding his stomach with both hands with saliva on the shirt of his mouth and his eyes rolled back, and Dreg still lying on the hallway floor with his head down, rubbing his face with anime-style tears. The two did nothing because before them was Issei with a seriously monotonous face, but they both knew he was pissed. They just stayed like that, and then Ascalon stood up, but still with one hand holding his stomach and with the other wiping the saliva from his lips. And Drake raised his head to be in a sitting position, but with a large bump on his head that was redder than the color of his dragon skin scales. So the two of them with difficulty looked into Issei's eyes, who only looked at them like a hunter to his prey. Only the two of them could say. "Brag Ascalon." Sorry, they said it at the same time looking at their hunter with their penetrating eyes, as if they could read their souls just by looking into their eyes. Issei. "I hope you don't repeat it, don't fight like that again when I'm present, understand?" Issei sentenced looking at the two. At that, the two could only stand firm looking at Issei and nodded very quickly because they know that Issei was a merciless demon when they piss him off too much. Issei. "Well, if you've stopped fighting like little girls, let's go back to the house, because they surely care about me," said Issei a little mockingly but in the last comment dryly and sarcastically. At that Drake and Ascalon shown to return to their respective places. When Issei saw that they returned, he put a spell on himself changing his appearance from that of a reed to a brown-haired man with amber eyes, which were his previous appearance. When he finished changing his appearance he teleported from the base, but not before setting the base's automatic security to prevent unwanted guests, but if the intruders managed to get in, they would be busy with things in the worst possible way. When I activated the security system he went into a purple vortex. Place Haidu Mansion Issei's room. Time. 7 p.m. In the Haidu Mansion, specifically in Issei's room, a purple vortex appeared and from it our chestnut appeared and the purple vortex disappeared. Issei, who decided to arrive exactly to his room just so as not to disturb those who were in the room or between part of the room. So Issei, who looked around to check his surroundings. He just breathed a sigh of relief. He began to walk towards the door of his room. When he opened it he found the house with the lights on, making him see that they were at home, so he decided to go down the stairs of the mansion. When he was going down the stairs he found a delicious aroma like miso or soup, so going down and heading to the kitchen when he did he saw the girls in the living room talking normally, so he only hid his aura and smell, so that the others would not feel it and that the white-haired lowly Nico would not either. Just like that I entered the room passing by there the ones in the room were Rose Issei, Riaz, Kaneko, Irina, Ziovia, Ravel, who were talking about something about their boyfriends, what their days were like, how the academy university was among trivial things that girls talk about now. To the girls and women who read this, I'm sorry if this part is offensive in any way, so sorry again. Issei passed by, ignoring the girls to see if they noticed his presence, but Issei went unnoticed just the same, only reaching the kitchen where he saw that Akeno was there and that they were making a vegetable miso with a little meat. Issei, who only thought that he should accept that they both cooked well, but he remembered the suffering that happened because of him and thus forgetting what he thought. He went straight to the refrigerator that was next to the stove, something that neither Akeno nor Asia realized he was there when Issei got to the refrigerator. He opened it which made a noise causing the two girls who were there to look where the noise was heard, but the refrigerator door covered the person, but when it closed the girls were surprised. There was the man they loved with an apple in his hand and a can of natural juice, who only turned his head with a serious and monotonous face, which was a great surprise for both girls, that for Issei, he only gave a slight smile very forced but well done to greet. Issei. Good girls as you are, said happy Issei with a smile in the same way so as not to suspect. Asia. Ooh, oh hello I-san, okay, how are you? She asked a little surprised still. Issei. Good, he said it simply. Akeno. I haven't seen you in a while Ice-kun, could it be that you are hiding from me fufu she said, already out of her surprise, with her usual sensual and sadistic tone, and licking her finger, because she saw Issei's well-formed body, because his clothes were tight on him. Issei. It's just that I've been training with someone for a long time and I haven't been able to spend time here or at the academy, haven't you noticed? He said with a serious voice, but with the last thing in a tone of false sadness. At this, the two girls were surprised that he was not in class for a while and neither at home, that neither they nor the others noticed for reasons that they clearly know very well, but they hid it. Asia. It's just that we were busy, I'm sorry if we didn't pay attention to you I-san, she said it with clear sadness that she realized that she forgot about him. Akeno. Oh, if you want I can make up for lost time, I can be with you tonight, what do you say Ice-kun? She said with some lust. Issei. No thanks, I have to go to sleep. The training I had was a bit demanding and I'm a bit tired. I'd like you not to bother me today. Please, no offense. Issei said kindly, causing the two girls to be in shock at such a comment. Akeno okay, she said with some sadness. Asia just nodded, still in shock. Issei. Well, I'm leaving, by the way, I'm not going to have dinner, I already ate during my training, he said, lied to leave the kitchen. At this the girls became depressed, but they put it aside because he was surely tired of training. When Issei left the kitchen he went to the living room, still with the apple half eaten and the can already half full. When he arrived more than halfway to the table where the other girls were, one of them noticed him. Ravel. Oh hello Isama, she said, somewhat curious as to how she didn't notice and that Issei was leaving the place. At those answers the others turned to where Issei was, only with his back turned to find him biting the apple and then swallowing and speaking. Issei. Hello, he said it seriously and dry. That made the girls look at him strangely. But they let it pass. The first was Riaz. Riaz. Hi Ice, how are you? I haven't seen you around here, she said, already over her surprise, and she said it somewhat embarrassed for not noticing her fiancé before. Issei. Well, I've only trained these past few months with someone, he said simply. Zenobia. With whom? The swordswoman asked. Issei. With a friend, it's that simple. Ross. Can you tell who your friend is? She said somewhat curiously. Issei. He doesn't like people to say his name, I say, tired of lying so much. Besides, I can't say he's Trihexa, otherwise they'll look at me as crazy, I thought. Irina. Why don't you want to tell your name? I asked, somewhat curious as well. Issei. It's just that it's somewhat reserved, so to speak, he said, covering up the truth. Ravel. Are you strong enough for me to train you? He said in a manager tone. Issei. Yes it is actually stronger than me, he said with some difficulty that he did not want to recognize it because Trihexa and Issei are actually on equal terms. Riaz. Really? If so, it's okay for me to help you train, but you can't demand too much from yourself, she said with some concern. Issei. Now they pay attention to me, what an irony, Issei thought, but then spoke. Don't worry, maybe they haven't noticed, but I missed classes during my training period because it was necessary, but don't worry about missing classes, because I have already handed in what was missing during my absence, he said seriously. At that the girls felt bad because they hadn't realized that Issei was neither at home nor at the academy. But they were surprised that Issei became more studious, but they noticed Issei's strong body that put a blush on everyone's cheek. Riaz. Boo, okay Ice, okay, but don't miss classes like that again without further notice, okay, she said with a blush and in a somewhat authoritarian tone. Issei. Okay, by the way, I was late for my training, I'm exhausted. Would you be kind enough not to be in my room today? He said so they wouldn't bother him. At that they were surprised. Zenobia. Why? I asked, wanting to know why. Issei. Because my body hurts and my friend told me to rest, but without using magic to heal myself, so that my body gets used to the training, he said, already annoyed of so many questions. Haneko. But your body hurts a lot, senpai. She said with a monotonous face, but in her voice with sadness for not sleeping with him now. Don't be evil-minded, who thought it in a bad way, that would be lolicans or pedophiles and worried about her senpai's body. Issei. Calm down Kaneko-chan, I'll be fine, he said with a smile. At that, she took away the worry from the Nico, but she was still surprised because when she noticed her senpai in the room, he released a little of his aura, making her detect that his aura was warm, but still combined with his Maligan aura, but she let it go, believing that it was due to overexertion of her body. Issei. Well, I'm going to sleep, I mentioned, ready to sleep, turning around. Riaz. But I can, right? I asked with a little hope. Issei. I'm sorry but no, I want to rest peacefully, I leave with a somewhat serious tone. After that he left the room missing his new attitude. Bekeno. So you saw it too, she said, entering the living room with dinner accompanied by Asia. Riaz. You too. Like this? Yes, I act something strange, she said, surprised by that more serious and firm attitude that was not like that before. Irina. Yes, it's true. Zenobia. They think we should be worried. Ravel. He said he was in a grueling training. Ross. Yes, but I still found that personality more serious and not perverted strange. Haneko. Very rare. Asia. Do you think we should talk to him? Riaz. No, we should let them rest, that's good for them, they're probably tired from so much training. Bekeno. Yes, that must be it. Ravel. I just hope Isama is okay. Bekeno. When he gets better I will take care of him properly, fufu. Riaz. No, it's my ice and you are the first to consent to it. Asia. I won't be left behind. Zenobia. Come on Irina, we don't have to stay behind. Irina. Oh Michael-sama, help me relieve my friend's pain. Ravel. How about a drawing of lots to see who will attend to Isama first? Ross. What a day, ah. So they continued the fight without realizing that the person they were fighting with was listening to everything. Issei. What nonsense, I moaned, a little tired of that attitude of theirs. So Issei retired to his room to rest with only the thought of going to look for him. Place Haidu Mansion, Issei's room. Time. 5:43 a.m. At this moment our protagonist gets up from his bed, which is still extremely large for most people, but let's continue. The protagonist gets up to look towards the window, only to see that the sun is barely rising from the top of the horizon. He just fixes his gaze on this wonderful view. Issei. This view is good, I would like to go to a quieter place than here. That reminds me that I have to go for that Deadpool guy. MMNNN, how will he be in a fight? Issei thought with a face eager to fight. So Issei again turned away from the window to head to the door. When he left his room, he opened and closed the door gently without waking anyone up. He went to the bathroom to wash his face, brush his teeth, take a hot shower, the normal thing when you go to the bathroom when you wake up now. With exceptions XD. After leaving the bathroom with a towel around his waist, he went to his room to change because he should already go to the academy that he agreed he should go to so as not to disappoint his parents, because in all these years until recently he was a pervert, and now that he can swallow them up with what he could do, he wouldn't skip classes to graduate and enter college to pass with honors. That's what he wanted, so he would strive for that, but since he already knew almost all the information in the history of the world, both natural and supernatural. So he just entered his room and dressed in his uniform neatly as he should, and then leaving this room with his academy backpack well prepared when he remembered his pending task. Issei. Damn, I completely forgot where I was supposed to look for that Deadpool guy, he thought, frustrated for not remembering something important. Well, it will be on the weekend. So going down the stairs and leaving the house. He walked away calmly because it was 6:30 am and the entrance to the academy was at 7:10 am, so he just went for a walk around there to pass the time that was only 40 minutes that he had to wander around there. Suddenly he remembered the cafeteria, so he changed his course to May's Cafe to greet her. Place: May's Cafe, coffee matcha. Time: 6:40 am. Our dear protagonist went to Cafe Mocha, the place that Issei likes to go to, because it gives him peace and tranquility, as well as something more that he doesn't even know about, but a certain lizard, I mean the red dragon, knows, but he would let his bear realize it, and if the girl's feelings towards Issei were correct, because if not, he would suffer the curse again. And Drake didn't want that from him. So Issei found himself in front of the store to visit May and have her delicious coffee with cream. When he was going to open the door, he felt a familiar aura. Those auras are from some demons. That worried Issei because he knew a long time ago that May had a sacred gear, but he didn't know how valuable it was because he didn't feel it being activated, so he didn't know how coveted it was, but now he knew that she could be strong, so what the hell was that by her aura? She was middle upper class bordering a little on high-low, so he only hid his aura and smelled to enter so stealthily as not to be detected. When he entered, he went to a corner of the place with a little shadow that was like a blind spot in the store that was lucky for Issei, so he saw that they were 4 demons. The girl with brown eyes, blonde hair, shapely D-cup breasts, wearing semi-casual clothing. 3 boys accompanying them. Apparently the girl and one of the 3 were the strongest, and there he knew that that boy was the king or the queen, or the girl was the queen or the king. He did not know how to distinguish, because the strong energy they gave off was egalitarian, so he did not know who was in charge. He saw that they were talking to May about something, but with his dragon senses he could hear the conversation. May's conversation with May, who opened the store a few moments later. 3 boys and a girl entered. They approached until they were in front of her, who was only a little scared. They just looked at her analytically until the girl from the group came forward. Girl. Good morning, she said seriously and kindly. May. Boo, good morning, she said, somewhat nervous because of that girl's anger. Girl. Sorry if you feel uncomfortable, but we wanted to ask you something, she said to calm me down. May. What a serious question, she asked a little calmer. Before the girl responded, she made a sign raising her hand that 2 boys behind her understood. Only they raised their hands, which made me feel a chill. By the time they lowered their hand, I stopped feeling the chills, but I had a bad feeling. Girl. Well, my name is Catalasia Besserner, said the now famous Catalasia. May. Nice to meet you, my name is May Tsukayomi, I kindly introduced myself. Catalasia. Nice to meet you, well, these are them. This is Milko's, pointing to a brown-eyed boy in casual clothing. He is Marbus, pointing to another brown-haired boy with semi-casual clothes and dark brown eyes. And it's Tabarama, I pointed to a white-haired man with grey eyes wearing a sweater. His gaze seemed like ice, and his face was pale. Milko's Marbus Tabarama. Nice to meet you, the 3 said respectfully. May. Nice to meet you, she said before bowing. Catalasia. Well, I've come to make you a proposal, and first I want to ask you a question. Do you believe in the supernatural? She said, staring at me. May. As she said without understanding. Yes, a little with your stories, but they are tales, right? She said innocently. Catalasia. Actually, those stories are real, she said, and then spread her demon wings just like her group. At this he was frightened, stepped back and fell without understanding the situation. Catalasia. I know it's confusing, but it's the truth, and about the proposal is if you want to join my entourage because within you lies a power, and so counting the supernatural, the war of the three factions, the life that is granted to be in a demonic clan, the death of God, the sacred gear that the god Elohim created for humans, and the basics of what there was currently now. I'm not going to become a teacher explaining everything. Go to Google to know the essential history, and the Anime Plus novel to know X well, that would be all. Tell me, do you accept to join my entourage? I know that you have a very valuable sacred gear. May, who was left processing so much information, but what left her in shock was that God was real, and the most bitter thing was that he died, but the most surprising thing was that she possessed something that he created, but she only wanted to be in a happy life with her work. May. And if I don't accept? I asked nervously, what could happen to him? At that, the woman's hair covered her eyes, and her aura that seemed evil covered her. Catalasia. I'll have to force you, she said with a very dark voice, performing a mental control spell, as well as the group that put themselves on the defensive if she were to struggle. At that, May became even more scared, closing her eyes expecting the worst, but nothing happened. She only opened her eyes to see the group that she could only see. They were like stones with their eyes open and their faces full of fear. Two of the boys fell on their backs to look around them looking for something, but they couldn't find it. That was the same as the girl and the other boy who remained standing. May could only look at them in fear and confusion until she suddenly heard a voice that sounded somewhat like a dead person without life or emotions. Can you tell me what they are doing here, bothering a simple girl who can't defend herself? How cowardly, said the one who suddenly came out from around the corner in the darkness, revealing a chestnut with emerald eyes shining with a powerful intensity with an aura that promised a painful, bloody, slow and horrible death. Before the incredulous gaze of the others except for May, who looked at him with great surprise and happiness that he saved her. Catalasia. Who are you? She said she didn't recognize him because she was afraid. But her companions looked at her in horror for not recognizing him. Marba circa Catalasia sa sama he, it's the security, he said with fear, because Issei was recognized for being powerful. At that, Catalasia looks at him carefully until she realizes, at that moment she can only. Catalasia. The Emperor of Breasts, she said with fear and somewhat embarrassed, covering her breasts with her hand that were cupped, but it was her biggest mistake. At that, Issei's aura increased drastically to unexpected levels, terrifying the group of demons except for May, who looked at him surprisingly, but Catalasia told him about the hero of the factions, but he was also ashamed that he was that hero who gained power through breasts. Everyone is shocked. But the one who responded to the ice was Issei, who still kept his terrifyingly active aura. Issei. Are you okay? He said, watching Catalasia not do anything. May. Yes, she said it so simply because he was still in shock. Issei. That's good, but I need you to go behind the counter please, he said kindly, seriously. The aforementioned got up trembling to walk quickly behind the counter to see how a force field covered it, but stopped seeing what was happening on the other side, which meant that Issei did not want her to see or hear what was going to happen. On the other side of the field I created Issei. Issei, when he created the force field around the counter so that he would not see what was happening, he turned his gaze to the group of 4 demons that was led by Catalasia, who apparently was the king, so the queen was Marbus, what he deduced. He increased his aura so that the entire group of demons fell to their knees as a result of the pressure of Issei's aura. Issei. I'm going to say it once and make it clear, don't come back here or bother or harm mate Tsukuyomi in any way, because if you do, a hell never known in all the existence of life will come, or death itself that will last for millennia, so get out of here immediately and don't say a word about what you saw, he said, warned, looking at them with his emerald-colored eyes, torn like a dragon. The demons, who were sweating with faces of horror that they had just witnessed, and more the last part, that was something that they literally had to take seriously or the consequences of their actions would be seen. At that, everyone left the place in magic circles without leaving traces and clearing the field that the demons made. Issei, who calmed down under the pressure and his eye color, returned to normal amber, thus releasing the barrier that protected May just in case. When the Disacius could see May with a face a little confused, surprised, happy and a little scared, he just walked to her slowly with a serious face that caused her to get a little scared, to stagger, to fall on her back, to hit her head on the wall, but she didn't get there, opening her eyes that she closed them for fear of hitting herself. She was surprised that Issei grabbed her by the waist with a face between worried and happy, but very little because she was still serious. Only he said. Issei. Are you okay? He asked in a kind tone. May blushed a little at that, so she just nodded her head. At that, Issei could only breathe a sigh of relief. Issei. Apparently, as you saw, I will have to tell you everything, right? He said, somewhat angry. That earned another nod from her. Issei arranged May to stand, went to a table and sat down. Issei looked at May, still standing, looking at him. Issei. Are you standing still or what? I asked with slight mockery. And that I walked to sit next to Issei. May. Well, I want to know what happened, she said somewhat nervously. Issei. Well, you already know what happened, so I'll give you a summary of this, plus a summary of my life, he said to tell him what happened. He told her everything that Catalasia told her, but in more summary. Then he told her. 1. How was your life? 2. How he was killed by his girlfriend who was actually a fallen angel. 3. How he was revived by Ria's turning him into a demon, her pawn. 4. How was the change in life after that? 5. Their battles. 6. Rivalries. 8. His loves. 9. Enemies. 10. Her growth in power made May feel a little ashamed to the point of gaining power. 11. How he died made me go into shock. 12. How he was revived by the 2 dragon god entities. 13. How was your last battle with the beast? 14. How he was betrayed by the girls he fell in love with in a certain way and overshadowed by the factions taking his reputation. 15. The curse thing that scared me, but she calmed down when she heard the rest. 16. How was the ritual to save his life at the cost of taking away most of his emotions, turning him into a cold being. 17. How did he know the truth about Trihexa and how he was trained? 18. Until the part of forming a mercenary team. At that information I was in shock. I was a little stupefied by what happened to Issei, who has suffered a heartbreak that killed him, revived by a girl who made him fall in love, and others, fought tirelessly just to meet the expectations of others, and now they pay him like this, they steal his merit, something that he didn't even want, he just wanted to recognize it a little and live up to it. Then something that made her angry was that the girls who said they loved him and that they would be together for eternity, deceived him that they were just words. And she saw that now the boy who brightened her day when he arrived and whose heartbeat became a being with a heart that would have no mercy on anyone in cold, but he did not show it when he was with her, something that she missed but she puts it aside, but she was surprised that he was trained by the one they called the apocalyptic beast. He trained him because it was for the favor, because he was controlled, and Issei was the one who freed him from that control. Something that made her happy was that she didn't have any grudges, and maybe she'll be that happy person again. 5 minutes later. Our protagonist, who only lived for 5 minutes, which was impressive, was left looking at May, who was crying for him, who had suffered a lot, so she could only hug Issei, who returned the hug. Issei, who corresponded with the arm, looks at a wall with a clock on it that said there were 3 minutes left to reach the academy. Issei. I have to go, he said seriously, but at the same time he didn't want to leave, his instincts told him not to go. May. But I don't want you to leave, she said sadly, and then realized what she said, turning her face red. No, that's what I meant. Issei. Calm down, you'll be fine, take it, he said, and then the boosted gear appeared, and he took a small dark green gem with black touches. When you need me, think of me and the gem will tell me when you're in danger. May. Okay, but come back soon, she said, giving a smile. Issei. It's a promise and I never break them, he said with a slight smile that made me notice it, so that Issei turned around to leave, but not before. Take care of yourself. May. You too. At that, Issei left the coffee shop to go to the academy. May, who sat looking at the door where Issei left, her heart was beating fast and a blush on her cheeks remained. May. Why do I feel this way about him? She thought, a little red in her cheeks. Place: Cuando Academy entrance. Time: 7:11 p.m. Now Issei walked calmly through the streets to reach the academy, but with slight thought. Issei. Why do I feel like this when I'm with her? Didn't most of my emotions leave my body and I was in that strange crystal ball? He thought, lightly touching his chest. But those who did know were Ascalani Drake, who saw the soul and heart of our brown-haired boy that was once between dark for being an evil dragon and at the same time white because he is noble and pure, but from time to time the darkness can take control, but when he is with a girl, that negative energy dissipates and the dark power of being an evil dragon is purified in a way that cannot be destroyed but can be controlled and maintained. They are thinking that that May girl is the one who can return the old Issei before doing the ritual. Issei, who arrived a minute late, arrived at the entrance of Cuondo's academy. When he arrived, he found that no one was there. He arrived only to meet his friend rival Saji, along with a girl who was none other than the former student council president known as the Ice Queen, who always has her cold and calculating attitude. When he was about to arrive, Sona stops him. Sona. What time is it to be late? Hi to Issei-kun. She said in her cold and authoritative way. Issei. I'm sorry, I just had problems on the way, he said, looking at her with empty eyes without any life. This behavior attracted the attention of the two present who were surprised, but suddenly Saji staggered for a few seconds and then fell on his butt looking at Issei in astonishment and concern, drawing the attention of Sona and a little of Issei, and then realizing what could have happened, Sona went to see Saji if he was okay. Sona. Is Saji okay? She answers, so Saji's hair covers her eyes. Saji. Why you, he said to see Issei, who made those present see that he had tears. Tell me it's not true that Vitra told me. Faced with that question, I wondered what Sona and Issei had done, who hit the nail on the head with what he deduced. Issei. That's all he supposedly told you, he said seriously monotonously. Sona was surprised by that, she didn't understand it, and it made her angry. Sona. Please someone explain this to me, Sona shouted to realize this, and then calm down, can we talk about this in the student lounge? At that the two boys feel, but on Saji's part, he looked at Issei with pity, gaining more curiosity from Sona. Student council room. I'm 720. Issei, who is sitting in front of Sona, and next to him Saji, who occasionally looked at him. Sona. Hi Dukan, can you tell me what happened and why is Saji looking at you like that? She said, somewhat curious and surprised. Issei. Well, it will be long, so Issei began to relate what happened in these 5 months that he disappeared without anyone noticing, how he was deceived by his girls and unconditionally in others, the ritual, the training, and the idea of a double life of being a mercenary that he was, an approximate of 5 minutes something surprising explained that is all summarized. The two present were shocked, one because her best friend did such a thing, and the other let's say he was crying in an I'm style, saying he's the man, or even when you suffered such a thing you didn't give up, I'm glad to be one of your rivals, Bue, things like that, making both of them shed drops of sweat. Sona. Well, that is unexpected, she said in a somewhat sad tone. Saji. Friend, you know you have my support, he said to grab Issei's shoulder and raise his thumb. Issei. Don't be like that, that's in the past, I'm not looking for resentment or hatred or revenge, he said so simply coldly. Sona. Well, that makes me happy, but when will you tell Rias? She said seriously. Issei. Let her realize it herself, maybe she realizes that everything she does will not be perfect, he said so coldly and dry that it made those present get a chill down their spine. Well, I have to go back to class. Sona. It's true, but don't be late again, okay? She said, returning to her student president form. Issei. Understood, I confirm so that it doesn't happen again maybe. Saji. I hope to get to where you are, he said with determined eyes. Issei. We'll see about that, he said, but before I leave, what are you doing here, Zone? Sona. I just took advantage of my day off from college to see how things are going here and see if Zenobia can do a good job as the new president. Issei. I understand, well, bye. Saji. See you later, he also said goodbye to the chestnut. Sona. Goodbye, she said with a happy half smile, but with some sadness. Rias, girls, when he saw me how disappointed I am, she thought with some disappointment and sadness for her older sister. So Issei left, leaving the two very thoughtful, but they put him aside to continue their things because they knew that Issei could do it. Time jump 4 days later, Saturday. Place Issei base his office. Time. 6:30 a.m. During the week there were boring classes that Issei already knew with his vast knowledge. During this week Issei's girls wanted to spend more time with him, but somehow he always disappeared. Only sometimes it was at lunch and occasionally dinner that he always tells him, I'm busy with training, or that he's tired, and when it was time to sleep, he always had to put anti-intruder seals. For Issei a stressful week, but he had to concentrate on today, which was the base. Issei, who was in his office in a part of it, which apparently was a closet with suits, which meant that it was time to search for the first member of the team, which is Deadpool, began to dress like a black long-sleeved leather sweater and hood with a face mask, with the print of a jaw. He spent the whole day choosing to go search. When he found it, it was for the desktop where he had the address where Deadpool is. When he read it, he was in New York City. So if Moore left the base, towards Deadpool's location through a vortex. Play City Bar inside the premises. Time 7:30 a.m. Our dear Redeed, who changed his appearance to the original, went to the bar in the city where Deadpool, or Wade Winston Wilson, which was his supposed real name, frequented. He saw that the place was where the scum gathered, in the words of ordinary people, but from another perspective a place where people who have been ignored or rejected by society gather here to at least enjoy the drink and company of people like them. The good thing is that his red hair was not noticeable in the crowd of people thanks to the black hood of his sweater, but just in case something that bothers him, changed his hair to white and gray eyes with black, but the iris of his pupil was a vertical line like a reptile. So Issei was looking at the place where he saw until he got to the bar. He gave a few distracted glances at the people and the place. The men and women seemed varied between motorcyclists, thugs, mercenaries, scammers, prostitutes. Nah. I'm really sorry if I offended a girl or woman who reads this, but those of us who know where Wade or Deadpool spend their time are like that mostly, so I ask the girls and women for understanding. Sorry. Before that he could only analyze the situation coldly, calculated. But suddenly he saw a person staring at him. It was a man sitting in a red chair next to the bar counter, wearing sportswear with a gray hooded sweater covering his face so that only his mouth could be seen. He was eating a sandwich that appeared to be tomato, lettuce, and chicken, with what appeared to be a silver chalice, with the contents apparently being whiskey. The subject watched him without stopping eating, while taking a few sips from his precious chalice of smell that he assumed confirmed that it was whiskey. Spending time with Azazel paid off. Issei just looked away to see a bartender who approached, who was brown-haired with hair that reached below his jaw with large glasses, some hairs on his chin of the same color of hair, who was chewing gum. "Bartender. What can I do for you, my friend?" the brown-haired man said with a silly face and a carefree voice. Issei. "Nothing, I just want a vodka please," he said coldly serious, giving a chilling air. The bartender looked at him a little surprised by the cold and serious voice, because he seemed young, he was small in size, he looked like a teenager, but he let it pass because he had already seen adults of that height. "Bartender. A vodka on the way sir," he said somewhat lazily and then turned his back on Issei to serve him a vodka. Issei, who was left alone calmly waiting for the one he was looking for and the alcohol he asked for, began to talk to his tenants. "Greg. It's good that dragons are not affected by common alcohol unless it is golden apples, or at least it is linked with the apple with another alcoholic drink," says the dragon with a little pride for his high resistance to alcoholic drinks. "Ascalon MNNNN, that sandwich guy looks suspicious to me," said, seeing through Issei's eyes how the guy in sportswear hadn't stopped looking at him since he entered. Issei. "Who cares now? We're just looking for that deep pool guy," he said to his two companions, a little irritated that he couldn't find the one he was looking for. "Greg. But why don't you ask?" he said with some wisdom, or acting like a wise hermit. Issei. "Because if we do it we can be discovered," he said seriously. "Ascalon. How so?" he said without understanding. Issei, who only had a vein come out because of how stubborn and idiotic those two can be, he now can't believe that they are known for being legendary, but he calmed down so as not to be a fuss outside the mental space. Issei. "What I mean is that when we ask the others, or as much as possible everyone in the place, will notice us. We come here undercover without causing a fuss, find and propose to Deadpool if he wants to join our mercenary group or not. And also I can help him with his mental instability that has been said in his profile history," thought Issei, who made his two tenants understand. "Well, it seems we'll talk later," he said again because the bartender was looking at him. When Issei came out of his mental space he realized his drink was in front of him and the bartender was looking at him strangely because when he handed him the drink, Issei stared at the counter table for a while until he blinked for a few moments to look at the bartender. Issei. "Thank you," he said with an empty voice without emotions. "Bartender. You're welcome, buddy," he said, already forgetting what happened. Issei took the drink and drank it. To be honest, this was his first alcoholic drink that he had ever had in his life. The taste was somewhat strong, but not much, something with a bit of a bitter and sweet taste at the same time. He continued drinking until there was none. He asked the bartender for more, and the same thing happened. He continued with the drink for a while. Until he realized that he had just drunk more than 23 glasses of vodka, leaving the bartender surprised from so much he had drunk. He hadn't even given any signs of being drunk. That was something to brag about, but Issei didn't give it any importance. He looked at the time and realized that it had been an hour and a half since he arrived. Those at the bar looked at Issei with a slight respect for holding the drink for so long. Issei ordered another one, gaining a little more curiosity from the bartender, wondering how he could hold it so long, but what was uncomfortable was the subject sitting in a red armchair with sports clothes who stared at him that apparently when he finished his sandwich, he ate another one without stopping since Issei arrived and has been doing that for more than 1 hour and a half, like his precious chalice that contained whiskey alcohol that he also filled from time to time. But the most uncomfortable thing is that the subject at some moment scratched his parts with the sandwich, that regardless of whether his breakfast was infected, that left him a little disgusted by such behavior, that confirmed to Issei that this guy is a weirdo in an unimaginable way. For a while longer Issei came to consume the drink called vodka, with a total of 47 glasses without signs of drunkenness or even dizziness, that left those who were in the bar amazed. The women looked at Issei with a bit of desire without any reason that they do not know. And the men with respect for drinking such a quantity of alcohol without having any effect, and a touch of jealousy for monopolizing the girls a bit. But suddenly the strange suspicious subject with the hooded sportswear that covered him gets up from the red chair, leaving his precious silver chalice, but without leaving his sandwich that apparently he had already finished. When the subject got up he walked towards Issei in a normal way. Issei noticed that he got up and turned his head to the side to see what he wanted, because he felt that the subject was going towards him, so he looked at him. Issei saw that he was wearing some pink rabbit slippers with eyes that moved with red nose, and apparently it made a sound when walking. Issei. Braig and Ascalon only had one thing on their minds: what the hell is wrong with this weirdo with his fetishes? The three of them thought respectively when they saw how he dresses, how he behaves and how he eats, and no one there paid attention to him. They can't believe that guy is like that. The very strange subject stood in front of Issei and took a last bite of the sandwich to finish it completely. Suddenly the atmosphere became serious for no reason, but only 3 people knew it: the bartender who took a step back, Issei who looked at the weirdo seriously. The weirdo who for some reason formed a smile on half of his face, that was the only thing that could be seen, but suddenly the subject was taking off the hood of his grey sport sweater to reveal a man with a face full of wrinkles but very young. He was bald, brown eyes without eyebrows. Issei. This guy looks like a newborn, but it seems that something went wrong when he left his mother, he thought with a poker face. Weird. I see you're good, how about if you two copy each other? He said in a cheerful young voice, confirming to Issei that he was young, about 30 or 40 years old, approximately. Issei. Do what you want, I don't care, he said in a cold voice. Weird. Hey, don't be like that, buddy, relax. Look, I've been watching you for a while, and I like you. Oh, I haven't told you my name is Wade Wilson, but you can call me darling, Yufifif, he said as he put his arm around Issei's neck in a flirtatious tone. Issei, when he heard the name, was a little surprised, because he was the man he was looking for now. He understood why the strange subject's personality was because he was Deadpool, who according to the profile history, said he was mentally unstable due to his power, and more because of his past. Issei. So Wade, huh? He said seriously, my name is, he said half-heartedly, and then said Astral. He mentioned lied about his name. Wade. Oh, Astral, what a strange name. I've known since I slept with a chick named Carmendia and her boyfriend named Didi, but life always has mysteries or not. Ha ha ha, he said with his cheerful tone, laughing. Issei. Astral. Well, leaving aside what you just said, I was wondering why the hell you're wearing those clothes in a bar like this? He said and asked Wade. Wade. Well, I dress like this because I feel comfortable. Here nobody tells me anything, besides the owner of the place, who is also the scared faggot bartender over there, is my dear and innocent best friend Weasel, he said in a funny way, pointing with the hand that he didn't have around Issei, pointing to the now recognized Weasel. They call. Nice to meet you, my friend, but my name is Jackhammer, but I have a nickname of Weasel, he said, raising his hand lazily. Issei. Astral. Well, I also wanted to ask you, why do you look like you were born from an avocado and a raisin, having wild hex for more than several hours or days? He said, looking at Wade, who was looking at him with a serious face. Weasel. Hahaha, it was the same thing I said when I saw him for the first time. Hahaha, he started laughing just like the others, but a little bit like them. Wade. You didn't have to say it, he said, removing his arm from Issei's neck and sitting on a stool next to him. Issei. Astral. I'm sorry, but it was the hard truth, he said it so simply. At that, Wade looks at him again, but with a very serious face, something that alerted Issei that just in case he had to fight here, but suddenly Wade changed his serious face to one that is laughing like crazy. Wade. Ha 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 ha, you fool, ha 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 ha, well ha ha ha, but it's true about my face. I know it's ugly, but it doesn't affect me, so it just makes me like, oh, I'm going to commit suicide for being as ugly as poop, or like Buea, I have no one to buck because I have the face of a wrinkled old man, things like that. But the good thing is that this face has great power, and also a big package down here as an extra bonus, he said, laughing a little and then dramatizing the parts, and then whispering the last part with a sensual tone, pointing to his crotch. Issei. Astral. Well, how about we have a round, what do you think? He said seriously but a little uncomfortable because of Deadpool's bipolar attitude. Wade. You read my balls, haha, he said. Weasel, little hitch, serve us the hottest, strongest, and most orgasmic tequila you have for me and my new astral friend, and a blowjob apart please, haha, he said to order the drinks. Weasel. Okay, MNN, 2 glasses of hot, strong and orgasmic tequila, and a blowjob on the side ready, I'll be right back, he said to go back to making the orders lazily. Issei. Astral. A blowjob, I asked, surprised by that name. Wade. You don't know. Issei shook his head. What do schools teach? Well, goof again, to clarify, to explain what a blowjob is. A blowjob is simple, a blowjob. That caused Issei to sweat drop by the 100. Wade. But don't worry, in a few moments I will educate you properly, son, hahaha, he said. At that point Weasel arrives with the drinks that apparently were good and a small glass with what seemed to be vodka, but before Weasel could ask he added whipped cream. Weasel. 2 glasses of tequila and a blowjob, he said, handing the 2 glasses of tequila respectively and the blowjob to Wade. Wade. Now you'll see the magic of cinema, he said to grab the blowjob and then give it to a waitress who was passing by, telling her to pass it to him, pointing to a burly guy with a blonde beard, bald head and biker clothes at a table a little far from the bar, and telling the waitress, pointing to another guy who was the one who sent it to him. It was a black guy in casual clothes to go to a bar like this. Weasel. There, Wade, not again, he said, already tired of the nonsense. Issei. Astral. What is that about? Not again, he said, a little curious. Weasel. Ah, sigh, you'll see, he said it so simply. The waitress went to deliver the blowjob to the beefy guy. When she gave it to him, the guy's face became furious. She asked him who gave this to him, only the waitress pointed to the African American guy and said that he was the one who gave it to him. When the beefy guy found out, he got up from his table, moving the things and people that were in his way. When he arrived, he lifted the other guy's table. Throwing him to one side, he went straight to the man who was still sitting, as well as some who were with him. The beefy guy had the blowjob in his hand. He raised his arm with the blowjob and threw it at the black man's head, which the black man returned with a punch in the face, but it was of no use. The beefy guy threw him with a direct punch in the face that knocked him on top of the table that the beefy guy had previously knocked down to the ground. The black man stayed there for a few moments. The people were excited to get up and continue. It seemed to work. He got up with blood on his head, mouth and nose. When he did it, the burly one only finished him off with a downward hook, hitting the black man dead. In that, Weasel approached, moving the others away, getting them out of the way. He approached the black man in his plaid shirt, took out a broken glass, and put it in the guy's face, specifically on the nose. There were a few moments to see that the glass fogged up slightly, showing that the black man was still alive, something that depressed the others. It was something worthy of Deadpool, a pretty ingenious plan. So our morning at the bar continued. 10:48 a.m. After 3 hours and 38 minutes had passed since he arrived, Issei spent a long time drinking with Wade, that he also resisted the effects of the alcohol. They spent time talking about trivial things. During that time, Issei was uncomfortable with the things that Wade did, but even so, he had to admit that he had a lot of fun. Things that he learned about Wade were his greatest hatred was a certain Francis who made him what he is now. After that, people left because they had to attend to their mercenary, gang, business, etc. things because it was already the rush hour between morning and afternoon, when the crowd is largest. But leaving that aside, when the bar was half empty, only one person was missing, who was a grumpy old African American woman, short in stature, but at the same time skilled, naive, wise, but had a bad language. But after a while she left and said goodbye to Wade in the form of a kiss of cheeks, in the form of an Italian farewell. When he left, the bar was empty. Wade. Now I think I'll go. What about you, love? He said, looking at me. Issei astral. Oh sigh, I'm glad the others left, he said, getting up, attracting the attention of the two. I never expected it to be you, Deadpool. At this revelation, the two boys were surprised, but Wade was alert, taking out a revolver from his sports bags. Wade. How did you know? He asked seriously. Or are you a stalker? He said again seriously. That's what made Issei's head pop a vein out. The atmosphere became tense as the two looked at each other defiantly. Until. Weasel. I better get out of here. I don't want to interrupt you, he said as he left the back of the bar through a door. Wade. Why does that faggot always leave me alone? He said with a slightly angry face. Issei astral. I don't want to fight, he said seriously. Wade. I'll believe that when you suck my big chimichanga that I have right here, he said seriously while grabbing his crotch with his free hand. Issei astral. I just want to propose something to you, he said, a little tired of those games. Wake. What? You want me to be your boyfriend? I'm sorry, I can hit on that side. Sometimes I can even do both sides. But right now I don't feel like doing it. Come like in about 3 days, and you'll see what I can do, he said, smiling. Issei astral. It's not that. I want to propose that you join me in a mercenary group. I know you are one, he said coldly. Wade. I am, I don't deny it, but what will that group of orgies of yours benefit me? He said. Issei astral. If you join, I will only call you when necessary, as well as 3 others that I want to gather, and it will also benefit you a lot, trust me. Have you forgotten the time we spent drinking? I do not seek evil, but rather I seek good from the evil being eliminated in a way, so that there is no chaos, and I want to do it from the shadows. I want to make a better world, he said, determined in his gaze. Wade. But you know that evil is like shit, it will always be there to make you shit, you know that. He said with a touch of mockery. Issei astral. I understand your reference a little, but that's why I want to make sure that evil doesn't dominate, so in a few words, I want at least a balance between good and evil, he said seriously. Wade. Yes, but you know that for evil to behave like a hitch we will have to spank it, you know. He said. Issei astral. To be more exact, I will have to kill those who cause evil. I know that very well, so what do you say? He said, a little tired of prolonging the conversation. Wade. I don't see the bad thing, but you will pay me, he said, seeing that Issei took out a bag from his black sweater to throw it at Wade, who picked it up from the ground to see its contents, which were diamonds. Oh, where did you get the goose with the golden or diamond eggs that you had to jerk them off well for this? Issei astral. Well, do you accept? He said to leave since he had to leave. Wake. I accept, but with one condition. Tell me your real name and where you are from, he said to know more about him. Issei. Sai, my real name is Issei and I come from Japan, so I'm a happy Japanese. He said, very tired of explaining. Wade. Yes, Issei-sama, he said in a mocking tone, bowing a little formally. Issei. Say it again or I'll rip your spine out, he said coldly with a threatening aura. Wait. Ajin-sama. Issei. No, he responded in a coldly threatening manner with a very dark aura invading around Issei, making the place become too tense and cold. Wait. Okay, you calm down, nervous me, he said raising his hands so that Issei would calm down. Issei. I've calmed down now, but please don't do it again. I don't like formalities. Just call me Issei or in a not so formal way, but without going overboard. He said seriously. Wait. Of course, my dear little boss, he said with a military salute pose. Issei. Can you leave those things at least for a moment? Wait. Nope, he said it simply. Issei. Seriously, leave it, he said somewhat irritated. Wait. Leave what? He said in an innocent tone. Issei, who couldn't take it anymore, with a speed and skill that surprised Wade, split him in half, spreading a little of his blood in the place a part of the front was in front of Issei, with a face of a little pain and surprise, looking at the lower part of the upper part of his body that was leaking blood from there, but it was regenerating a little, making it close a little by little and the lower part of Wade's body was a few centimeters from him. Wade's entrails could be seen coming out of the body from the bottom leaking blood, while Issei, who is where Wade was previously standing before being cut in half, with Ascalon in his hand dripping drops of blood. Issei. I think I went too far, he said, seeing Wade's body split with a lot of blood spread on the spot. Wade. You really went too far, you can't stand heavy jokes, right? He said, his upper body a little sore. Now you'll have to carry me like a backpack to my house. I'll need 3 hours to recover and 1 extra hour for something else. Issei. What would that extra hour be? He said a little curious. Wait. To check if my chimichanga works well, I mean I'll need to eat it for a while, he said laughing. Issei. Do what you want, the good thing is that you accepted, I will take you where you live. By the way, where do you live? I asked. Wait. Go a few blocks to the left, 2 more to the right, turn right into an alley, and you will find a run-down house, like a poorly run brothel combined with a poorly maintained nursing home, and you will find a complaining old lady, who you actually saw a while ago. Be careful, that old lady, she is dangerous. Issei. Fine, but what do we do with the lower half of the body? I asked, seeing the body there, still with blood coming out of it. Wait. Don't worry, my friend can pick it up and give it to the dogs or throw it in the trash, he said it simply. Issei. Oh better, he said approaching the lower half of Wade's body. That Issei cut Hakai, he pronounced to Wade's amazement, seeing the lower part light up fading into little black lights with red ends. Wade. What the buck did you do? I want to turn it on. Yes, show me, he said in the form of a child asking. Issei. No, he said seriously cold. Wade. Why? MNNN, he said in the form of a child's pout with teary eyes. Issei. Because I decided it, he said seriously turning his head looking over his shoulders at Wade with piercing eyes. Wade. Oh, so he wants to penetrate me? Better use protection, Wade mentioned, breaking the fourth wall of the fourth wall. Issei. What did you just say? He said without understanding why he said it. Wade. Women's things, he said trying to imitate a woman. Issei. When will you stop? He said tiredly. Is there a back door? He asked, turning his head to leave the premises through the back so as not to be seen. Wade. If after the bar to the left, don't tell me. He groaned surprised. He just ignored him, turning his head looking ahead. He was passing the bar when he did so and entered a room that he passed by to then go to the back door. When he entered he saw Wheels watching TV eating chips with a can of beer in his hand. He didn't pay attention to Wade or him. Issei was passing the room and saw the door. When he did so, he left the bar and entered the alleys of the city to reach the house of the old woman that Wade mentioned. Wade. Hey, why don't we go the fast way? He said on Issei's back. Issei. Because if they see us, they will tell me to kill an ugly man with a raisin face and then cut him in half, said Issei, tired of this. Wade. Hey boss, you're so smart, I should give you a kiss, come here for one, he said, trying to give Issei a kiss on the cheek. Issei, who saw that they were going to give him a kiss, suddenly stopped. Wade. Ah, so you want it, right? Well boss, he couldn't continue because Issei let him go, and then he quickly turned to grab Wade's head, burying it in the ground so hard that the floor of the alley cracked a little. Issei. Look, I liked you, but if you continue like this, it will be worse, do you understand? He said calmly but very seriously in a cold, emotionless voice. Wade, who was still with his head buried in the ground, nodded. When Issei released him, he saw that several stones were embedded in Wade's face from the force of the impact. Wade. There, why did you have to be such a masochist, my boss? He said, pretending sadness while fake crying in an I'm style. Issei, who heard him, just gave a resigned sigh at Deadpool's attitude, so he picked him up again and carried him on his back again. He set out again on the long path towards Wade's house and the old woman's. He went through several alleys, avoiding the paths where they could see him, but he remembered that he could use invisibility magic, so he applied it to himself and Wade. When he did so, he went through alleys to be cautious of everything, because a supernatural being or a human being capable of detecting him may appear, so he was attentive to his surroundings just in case. Reaching a straight alley, he turned a corner to find a wide alley, but on the right side of the alley, there was a barren section with a poorly maintained house that looked like the earth ate a little, because it seems that it sank into the ground, with a dry garden, tires over there, a half-burned and disassembled car, dogs with or without leashes over there fighting, biting each other, asleep, mating, barking, and even some dead ones out there. Issei didn't care about any of that, but he still asked out of curiosity. "Issei, do you live here?" he said in a serious and analytical way as well as his gaze. "Wade. It's my sweet, comfortable, beautiful, and bright mansion," he said mockingly with a smile. "Issei. If you work as a mercenary, why don't you buy an apartment far away from here?" he said, something curious. "Wade. Because even if I go somewhere else there will always be people who see me differently, but here it is different. The old lady here is kind to me in her own way, of course," he said somewhat sadly, but with joy and mockery at the end. "Issei. Do you care about that old lady?" I asked, looking at him over his shoulders. "Wade. Yes, she is the one I can consider family, because there was someone else in this plush heart, but he died a long time ago," he said with a nostalgic voice. "Issei. I'm sorry if I reminded you of something bad." "Wade. It's nothing, I can see in your eyes, the way you act and speak, that you went through some pain similar to what happened to me," he said with a smile. Issei, who looked at him, just turned to look ahead, but in his eyes could be seen a smile of joy. "Wade. Well, we went in, or my lower part is regenerating, so I feel a slight breeze of air," he said, seeing the lower part of his body, a mini neep growing slowly with mini legs like a baby. "Issei. I'm sorry." In that walk towards the house he passed by the dogs that when they saw Issei they launched themselves at him, but when they felt the aura that he unconditionally expelled, that his evilness was felt to be part of his evil dragon side, they moved away. Some crouched down in a form of respect to a superior predator, others ran away, those that did not have a leash, and others hid. After Issei passed by the dogs he went down a descending staircase. When he arrived down and got to the door he knocked 3 times, and no one opened. He knocked again and nothing. He is losing patience, so he prepared for a hakai with his right hand, ready to make that door disappear and enter to claim the old woman until Wa intervened. "Wait. Wait, don't do anything, I can solve it," he said, making Issei nod. "Well, grrr. He cleared his throat loudly and blew a lot of air. "Please turn me around," he said, holding his breath, causing Is to turn around, putting Wade facing the door. "To old lesbian witch, wake up and get up, your disgusting black ass of shit." "That's right," Wade yelled at the poor African American old lady, to wake up from her old lady's nap, only to be greeted with, "How the buck did you call me a pedophile, you thing bore with a hitch face," was the scream of an angry old lady inside the house. "Wade. What, you heard, decrepitating old woman, and now open the damn door at once or else I will come in to span that wrinkled ass of yours," Wade shouted, and then the door of the house opened to reveal an elderly African American woman with black glasses and white hair, shorter than Issei. "Old woman. Who are you going to spank, son of a hitch?" the old woman shouted, looking next to Issei and Wade. "Wade. To you for not opening the bucking door," Wade shouted, grabbing the old woman's head so that she would look at him, because the old woman was blind. "Old woman. I was watching the damn TV." "Wade. And what were you watching?" "Old woman. The damn soap opera of Juana Christian Puentes of Guadalupe." "Wade. And why didn't you call me to see it?" "Old woman. Because I didn't find the bucking phone." "Wade. The damn phone was on the table, I left it there for you for when the damn shitty show that I like started. You let me know, lesbian witch." "Old woman. It's not my fault that she's blind." "Wade. And it's not my fault for getting looked like a crap." "Old lady. And it's not my fault that he burned his eggs and bacon in the morning." "Wade. And it's not my fault that I wear your old lady panties from time to time, which by the way are comfortable." "Old woman. What are we shouting about?" "Wade. No lose." "Old woman. And why do we keep screaming?" "Wade. How the buck do you want me to know?" "Old woman. What if we stop screaming?" "Wade. If we do that?" "Old lady. Okay." At that Issei just stared at this conversation calmly, but his mind could only say, "Issei. What the hell was that?" was the thought of the strange thing that just happened in front of him. After that Issei left Wade with the old woman. She said that it was normal for her to take care of him when this same situation happens from time to time, that they cut him in half, which brought out more anime-style drops in Issei's head. They talked a little for about 10 minutes, that during that conversation, Issei mentioned to Wade about what it is, the 3 factions, his war, his life. And what has happened? It must be said that Wade was surprised while Al was preparing a coffee that was very difficult because of how blind she is, that only Issei helped her a little after seeing her for a while that she was looking for the coffee maker. After a while, Issei told them that he had to go, so that they, Wade and the old woman who by the way was called Al the Blind, also said goodbye. Without further ado, Issei left through a purple vortex, leaving only the two from the house, Wade and Al. Al. As you have increasingly weird friends, Wade, she said, looking into the distance. Wade. Yes, my life gets more interesting every time, said Wade, who is on a large red sofa with his arms on the top of the sofa, watching that his lower part is regenerating, which by chance is growing baby legs. Ah, how I hope my big chimichanga grows, so I can eat it, he said, seeing a small penis growing on him. Al. Thank God I'm blind, she said, looking into the distance and sitting next to Wade. Wade. Do you know something? Al. What? Wade. What God is dead? Al. Hey. Wade. Ha 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 ha, I'll explain later. Place Issei base his office. Time. 11:20 p.m. From a vortex Issei appeared in his office. When he arrived he prepared to change his hair color, and he never changed it at any time, so with a spell, he changed his hair color to the original, which was blood red, with emerald eyes. He put on a somewhat comfortable suit because he was at his base, but when he got to his desk he saw something, or rather someone, on his chair. How had he not noticed her? He made sure to be more attentive, so with subtlety he reached behind the chair to turn it around to meet the crazy inventor, the former leader of the Fallen, Azazel, his sensei at the academy, who was the only one who did not leave him aside or take most of the credit. Rather, he was the one who gave his credit to Issei, because he was the one who did a little more work than him. But looking closely at the fallen man, he was sleeping, snoring lightly. Only Issei had a vein pop out on his head. Issei. Hey Azazel sensei, wake up, he said, trying to wake him up, but he didn't answer. Hey bird, wake up. No answer, causing Issei to get upset. Azazel, if you don't wake up I'll tell Shamanza that you were lazy and left your things to do at Penemu. As if by magic, the fallen man opened his eyes with a pale face and jumped out of the chair to hide behind the desk. Azazel. No, please don't tell them anything. If they know, they're going to kill me, and worse, they'll torture me for years, he said, raising his head from the desk and had an I'm-style tears, but then he realized who it was. Brat, don't scare me like that, you'll almost give me a heart attack. Ui. Issei. You slept well, right? He said seriously. Azazel. Yes, that chair you created plus the base are incredible, he said with a smile and a sparkle in his eyes, but I want to know what really happened. He said, leaving the last part very seriously. Issei. So Vali told you, right? Making the fallen one nod. Ah, no wonder you know about the place and how you recognized me. He paused. Everything he said was true. Azazel. Issei, forgive me if I was there. He couldn't finish because Issei interrupted him. Issei. There is no need for you to apologize, rather you are not the one who should apologize, but them, but well, surely you came to know what I am going to do. Azazel. Yes, I want to know what you will do now. He asked seriously. Issei. As Vali told you, I'm going to be a mercenary in a group that I'm creating, but don't worry, this will benefit you because I will only kill those who do evil, he said with a serious and determined voice. Azazel. That took a weight off my shoulders, but tell me, how do you feel? He said, relieved, and asked. Issei. If it's because you think I'm looking for revenge or whatever, I won't kill them, rather they can do whatever they want, I don't care anymore, he said with an air of wisdom. Azazel. Yes, Vali told me about this, as he also told me about the ritual. Tell me, are you still a pervert? He asked with a bit of mockery. Issei. No, I'm sorry, he said in a cold voice. Azazel. Ah, it's a shame, a perverted brother ended up dying, he said, feigning pity. Issei. But what else have you come for? Azazel. I came because Vali told me that you had a crystal ball that has your emotions, but you don't know how to get them back, right? Issei. That's right, I don't know how, but I won't give up. Azazel. That's the excitement, but I can do it for you. I'm sure you're busy with everything you have to do, plus you still have to keep this secret, right? Issei. As always you are attentive if it is true, but surely you can do it. Azazel. Believe me, nothing is safe from my hands. Issei. Well, you're crazy about those things, maybe it will work. So Issei made a magic storage circle, making the sphere containing his emotions come out from within them. Issei. Well, here it is, I'll leave it to you. Azazel. Don't worry, I'll take care of her. Issei. By the way, how did you get in? Azazel. I have my methods, he said, making a circle and then disappearing. So Issei was left alone again. Issei. Well, I think I have time. I'll look for carnage. So Issei went to the desk to look for the location of the carnage. Place Kyoto Castle of the leader Yasaka, balcony of a room. Time. 2:30 p.m. On a balcony in a room, there was a girl of no more than 12 years old. She had blonde hair tied in a ponytail, golden eyes, traditional Japanese clothing with white on top and red below, fox ears. She was a Kunu, the daughter of the Yokai leader Yasaka the Kyuubi, who apparently had a sad look that could be seen on her face because in her hand there is a dark black crystal. But even if it shone in the afternoon light, that crystal was a fragment of Issei's armor when he went to visit the place for the past reasons that she has had that fragment for the last 4.5 months. But when the crystal began to turn opaque and black, she got scared, but it still continued to shine like that. She had a doubt if her hero is alive or dead. She still kept her promise, but even so, she worried because she looked at Issei as a future father. Kunu Issei don't know, I hope you are okay, she said as a tear came out of her left eye. But then a guard arrives. Guard. Kunu-sama, your mother Yasaka-sama is calling you, said the guard seriously. Kunu? Okay, she said seriously. She was still angry with her mother for doing that to her Issei, but as she said, many of us make mistakes, but she still had a little bit. So he kept the black crystal in his clothes and then went to see his mother with the guard. Chapter 4. The encounter with the symbiote and the fight with the Sparta Part 1. Day. Saturday. Location Forest Base. Issei's office. Issei, who was preparing to go look for Carnage, searched his closet for a different outfit, but first he would take a bath because after being in the bar where he was looking for waiter Deadpool, he had a bad smell on his body and he smelled it more through his dragon senses. When he took a bath on one of the 5 floors of the base, he went to dress for the next member of his mercenary group, but something else was going through his head. What name could he give to his group? But I put it aside for the moment to concentrate on Carnage, who read his history. It was said that he was a type of living mass that needs a living being to survive, and if the host is not compatible, it is devoured by the living mass that is called a parasite or symbiote. In his profile, it said that the carrier is called Cletus Cassidy, who was a human, whose history was a homicide, murder, torturer, mentally unstable, a psychotic killer who serves 20 life sentences, among other things, plus the arrest warrant that was by order of the police service as federal. His crimes ranged from attempted murder to literally torturing people to death through pain for long periods of time, and that he dismembered their limbs, as well as made dissections in their bodies, that sometimes his victims were alive. According to the profile history, it said that his childhood had to do with something or a lot really. At a young age he killed his parents who were alcoholics and with a very strong temper, and to distress Cletus's parents mistreated him as a child, so little Cletus killed them, causing his dementia and his taste for death and blood, and when custody of the child passed to his grandmother, the child killed him by pushing her down the stairs. When that happened, the child went to an orphanage, but it did not last long, because the same orphanage burned down in flames caused by the child, because both the caregivers and the other children laughed, mocked, attacked him and despised him for being antisocial and distant. From there little Cletus grew up becoming as he is now, a being with a twisted and broken mind. But for Issei, he saw potential to grow, in addition to how Deadpool would help him with his physical and psychological problems. Now the power that he possesses, or rather that he obtained, that power is the parasite or living mass, or better called scientifically symbiote, with the name of Carnage, which means slaughter, carnage or massacre. That name can be defined in different languages throughout the world. That being lives inside Cletus as its host. It is like Drake that lives inside Issei, but in a different way. Because the symbiote chooses its carrier, but if there is no compatibility with its host, the symbiote controls it until it devours it, but if its compatibility is highly compatible with the symbiote, their bodies, so to speak, would suffer changes more with some abilities that are granted in this process. If it is successful, this is called symbiosis, which allows the symbiote to have the compatibility or friendly relationship with its carrier. According to history, Carnage is the product of another symbiote called Venom, which is biologically speaking his father. Because the carrier of Venom gave a visit to the prison where he was Cletus, his name according to the history report is called Eddie Brock. When Eddie left prison, Venom, without realizing it, accidentally released a piece of his body, but this was natural for his race, because apparently this is called reproduction, or rather duplication, where the symbiote separates a piece of it to create a symbiotic life, but in their culture apparently, they do not recognize them as children, rather they are like another symbiote that can serve for something or be devoured by another, so that it becomes stronger by consuming it. That part when Issei remembered it, he was invaded a little by the feeling of anger, not being recognized, not being valued, not being loved either. Those things that Issei does not tolerate, but he let it go at the moment. When he was born, Carnage was only a mass, almost non-existent, unless because Cletus always cut himself with something sharp that he found in the cell, so when one of the many cuts he made himself, the little blood reached the newly symbiote that joined the blood. When doing so, its genetics changed, making it strong, but he wanted more, so he went to the origin of the blood. When he found it, he went straight to it. When he entered he realized that he had compatibility with him, so for a few days the symbiote lodged in its new and first carrier without Cletus, realizing that he had obtained a powerful friend. When Carnage appeared for a moment, Cletus thought that it was just another voice from his already broken mind, but he was surprised when the symbiote showed itself in front of him. Carnage explained how it works, how it was sustained by being incited, in exchange for giving it power and strength, to which Cletus accepted, and in the same way the most bloodthirsty being seen was born. They are Carnage with their power, they were able to escape from the prison where Cletus was, thus continuing their wave of massacre wherever they go. Well, Issei, who stopped remembering Carnage's history, went to his office to see what to wear, so he started thinking about what costume to wear. He was trying on several clothes to look somewhat normal, but those were not only normal clothes, but special clothes that hid his smell. And color of his appearance is to look more human, so he tried on many clothes, in addition to looking good, because not only could he look normal, he also had to look somewhat well dressed at least. Issei. Well, I think I look good with this, he said, looking at himself in the mirror that was attached to the wall next to the fitting room and the clothes closet. Issei's clothes were black set, and these clothes had the specialty of changing his hair, eye and skin color, as well as wearing glasses. Now Issei had black hair with a bit of white at the tips, with black and grey eyes and slightly pale skin. Issei. I see myself with a vampire, but still, Drake, Ascalon, get out, said Issei, looking at himself and then putting on a serious face and calling his companions. The aforementioned appeared in lights, Drake that came out of a green glow from Issei's arm, and on the other came Ascalon of a silver glow with yellow. Drake. Ascalon. What's wrong? Asking why they were called. Issei. Don't you know what we're going for? I ask because since they live there they should be informed. Drake. Ito, I was sleeping, hahaha, I'm sorry, he said somewhat nervously, raising his left paw. Ascalon. Just like straight trash, I'm sorry, he said just as nervous but looking mockingly at Drake. Drake. What do you mean, straight trash? Sharp piece of tin, he said, offended. Ascalon. How dare you? He said, equally offended. Dryag. What you heard, he said so simply, looking him in the eyes. Issei. Well, I think it's time for you to stop fighting all the time. I feel like I'm becoming your babysitter, and that's not me. Grow up once and for all, understand? Issei said with a serious voice, but the end of the word in a thick and severe voice. At that both Drake and Ascalon felt a little afraid. Ascalon. Drake. Sorry, Issei-sama, they both said in fear. Issei. I like that. Well, getting back to things, mmmn. Yes, what I was saying is that we should look for Carnage, the possible member of the group, but according to the profile he has a high instinct to attack anyone who threatens him, that's why we have to be on guard. By the way, he has a fairly high regeneration that with only if a drop of blood remains from the symbiote, he can regenerate the body based on that. Even if the symbiote cannot be destroyed itself, it can regenerate again from the blood of its carrier, meaning that both the carrier and the tenant are like an immortal that can rival the regeneration of the phoenix. No. It can even rival mine or that of Trihexa sensei, the same as Deadpool, that depending on whether you cut off his head or take out his heart or freeze his body with blood, he can still regenerate his body. It's surprising these people that I'm looking for. Well, it would have to be like that because the missions that we will possibly do would be of a very high level that would need obligation a high resistance, that would be an almost indestructible defense or high level regeneration to survive them. But returning to the subject, we must be careful with Carnage, explained, and said Issei seriously to the two present. The two seriously attended with Issei's explanation. Issei. Well, it's time to go, he said, grabbing a bag next to him to put it on, so that Drake and Ascalon could go back to Issei and leave in a vortex, sucking him in and then disappearing. Place: New York, Brooklyn, in the slums. From a portal Issei came out with his new appearance. When he exited he saw that the place was a dark alley that led in two directions, one to the street where some of the residences and businesses were located, and the other went to a labyrinth among the other alleys. The black-haired man thought carefully about this. So he went to the street of residences and businesses to see what the place was like. When he saw it, it was a little modest and quiet in itself. It seemed like a good neighborhood where he was, although it was one of the slums. The place itself felt comfortable, but as he went deeper, the place changed to something modest, to a place that looked like gangsters or something like that, but Issei didn't care, even so he continued walking. He saw that the houses were a little worn out due to lack of paint and maintenance, as well as graffiti around here and there. The businesses were in poor condition because most were apparently something like illegal production. Issei saw that sometimes the world is not rosy, and he already knew that. His former self was stupid. He saw the good, but hid the bad that surrounded him. He lied to himself, but that was the past. Since that occasion happened, he was no longer the same. He now knew that the world showed how cruel it can be sometimes, how evil fate can be, and how painful the truth can be. The truth is Issei felt bad for not being able to do anything, although he had lost most of his emotions, he still felt that he had to do something, and that he remembered a phrase he saw on Facebook a long time ago with one of his actors that he liked who once played his favorite character in action movies. Closing the past is like finishing an old book, moving on to the present is like beginning a new one, and thriving for the future is like looking forward to reading the next one. When he remembered it, he thought that he should leave the past behind in order to open a new chapter in his life and continue like this until he reaches the future that he can build from now on. Issei, who was thinking, did not realize that some people were looking at him as they passed by and some of a group of gang members saw him, so they followed Issei. Issei cleared his mind to reality and realized what happened, so he followed the flow and went to an alley. The group consisted of 7 people. The gang group followed him to the alley until they realized that it was closed. They trusted each other. Issei, who saw that it was closed, stopped with his back turned looking at the wall in front of him. The group of gang members closed the exit and so one of them spoke. Gang member 1. Brother, it seems you are lost, do you want help? He said with a malicious smile, taking out a Swiss Army knife, and like the rest of the group, they took out weapons that were somewhat dangerous for normal people, but Issei is not normal in itself. Issei. Well, maybe yes or maybe not, who knows? He said from behind, looking over his shoulders with a killer instinct, making the others scared. Bang member 2. Hey, give us your money, he said, somewhat intimidated by the look. Issei. And what if I don't give them to you? He said, turning around to face them. Bang member 1. Shut up or we will kill you, he said, pointing his knife at him. Dangstr 3. That's how it's done, bro, let's not let ourselves be intimidated by this idiot, said the other one standing next to the first one with a baseball bat. So the rest of the group prepared for a beating with him. Issei. Are they idiots or what? He said, closing his eyes and crossing his arms. Bang member 4. What did you just tell us, you bastard? He said angrily for calling us idiots. He had a Vanguard-style animal hunting knife. Bang member 5. We are going to kill them, brothers, what do you say? Said one who had a revolver-type gun, brand Gammer. Bang member 6. Yeah, you see, this is what you get for being a conceited, unhappy, bucking bastard, said the last member of the group who was carrying a small machine gun. Issei. Oh, so you want to fight? Well, I will give you what you deserve, and that will be your lives that pollute this world. I will eradicate you from the face of existence, he said the last thing with a deep and rough voice that at the same time was a double voice when heard carefully. At that the others were very scared. No, that was little, they just signed their grave by dealing with Issei. The one who had the machine gun started shooting out of fear and desperation. Bang member 6. What the hell are you? He said while shooting incessantly at Issei, but the only thing he did was that the bullets when they were fired only bounced off Issei's body, causing them to scatter throughout the alley, hitting the walls, the floor, everywhere. Issei was filled with bullet holes, but he was not affected in the slightest. Bang member 1. What is he made of? He said, afraid of seeing the unreal scene. Bang member 3. I don't know, let's go, he said, ready to get out of there, but something stopped him and it was a wall in front of him. What is this? Where is the exit? At that the others turned around and saw that the exit was closed with a stone wall that they didn't even realize was there just a few moments ago, and now it was locked in with the thing they tried to assault. Bang member 2. What happened with the exit? He said desperately. Dangstr 5. I don't know, but I don't want to keep that thing, he said to point where Issei was, but he wasn't. Where are you? Hey, you weren't there, he was saying why Issei disappeared from sight and asked his friend why he was shooting at him, but when he turned around he was horrified and a lot because his friend was headless, but the surprising thing was that his body remained in the same position. With both hands holding the machine gun, but a second later in the part where the head should have been blood began to splash in droves. What happened to him? What happened to that monster? Where are you, damn spawn of the devil? At the screams, the others turned around to see the headless body of their friend, who began to get scared and look around to find someone who had escaped or at least wanted to take care of Issei, but that second option was impossible. Don't compare me to them, I'm a bit darker than them, and they also think I'll let them escape that easily. Big mistake, he said something in the darkness with the same forest they heard. Bang member 1. Please forgive us, he said, trying to persuade him. Why would I do that? He said with some mockery. Bang member 3. Because we will give you everything you want, women, money, drugs. Ask for whatever you want, we will give it to you, but please leave us, he said desperately. MNNNN. Something was heard in one direction in the darkness. Those in the group looked where the voice was heard when they saw in a corner where Issei came out, looking at them thoughtfully at that they were on guard. Issei. Well, maybe I'll leave them if they give me information about something I'm looking for, I said without stopping looking at them. Bang member 1. Okay, what information? Issei. Have you heard of an animal or monster, a red being that is killed around here? I want to find it for something personal. Bang member 2. what are you talking about? Before completing the sentence he was interrupted by one of the gang members. Gang member 4. I do, he said, raising his left hand. Issei. Well, tell me what you know. He said with a calmer and quieter voice, but serious and cold than before, which calmed the other gang members. Gang member 4. Well, I heard from an informant that our opponent, who is a rival gang, had several of their men killed by a kind of red mass with teeth that dismembered their bodies. Also, some bodies of some of those attacked were missing. They say they were devoured and that they are in some buildings in neighborhoods below here near an old industrial zone, but it is impossible. Issei. Well, it isn't, so look at me, he said calmly. Gang member 4. It's you, he said, very scared. Issei. No, but I'm looking for it, Issei mentioned. Dangstr 5. So you're just going to let us live and go? He said somewhat hopefully. Issei. Who said I would leave them? He said extremely cold and gloomy. Gang members. But if you, before answering, Issei interrupted him. Issei. I said maybe, but I didn't say that I would leave you. Let's be honest, do you really consider yourselves worthy of something like that? You're scum, evil to the world, so die, he said that, and then chains pierced all parts of their bodies, dismembering them. After about 38 seconds of pain and suffering, all you could see was that there were parts of all kinds of organs scattered around, blood all over the floor, which is actually a very large puddle, guts scattered, and some stuck to the walls. It's a very traumatic scene that would leave a mark on your head for a long time, but Issei wasn't fazed by this horror. It was a good thing he put a seal of silence and smell, just in case there were scavengers around or simple passers-by. After Issei dismembered them, he burned the bodies with a fire of drag that can burn everything. It is the invincible fire that made his master Trihexa withdraw from some of his practices, but in itself he did not win. The bodies were instantly incinerated by the fire. At that point Issei set out to remove the earth wall that was blocking the exit and headed in the direction where Carnahe was supposed to be, thanks to that kind guy. Place: abandoned warehouse near the industrial zone. Time: 5:10 p.m. In a few minutes Issei found himself in front of the industrial area. It looked like a desolate place, but at first glance, he saw a warehouse nearby somewhat abandoned according to normal standards, but the smell of fresh blood that was thanks to the good sense of smell of a humanoid dragon said otherwise. Issei walked through the desolate place straight to the warehouse that was somewhat isolated from a firm structure still, made of reinforced concrete, a good place for a hideout, but as Issei walked, he felt that they were watching him, as if they were eating him alive, but not like a woman to a man, but an animal hunting its prey. But what the hunter does not know is that the prey can become its hunter at any moment. In the darkness a blood-red ray passed through some rubble near Issei, but he saw it and was surprised by the speed. The blood-red entity went straight to the warehouse where the abundant thirst for blood could be smelled. At that Issei went to the warehouse. When he entered he saw something very disgusting, but he didn't even flinch, and it was that there were bodies on the floor with their bellies, heads, chests and some face down with their backs open with their insides scattered. There were also some with missing body parts, each and every one had an expression of horror on their face. Apparently he tortured them before killing them and also dismembered them and performed dissections on the victims still alive, both women and men, young people and even the elderly. Those are the bodies that could be seen in plain sight. At that moment Issei felt something like that, so he jumped to the left, but in doing so he saw a kind of red blade with black lines outlined on it that took a shortcut to the ground where Issei was previously located. The blade hit the ground leaving a large, but at the same time small cracked hole. Then Issei turned his eyes to see the body of the one who attacked him and saw a kind of slime or something similar when he saw it. It was blood red with black lines and wide eyes of about 2.5 meters or more or less. Issei knew exactly who he was. The psychopathic, maniac, butcher, genocidal maniac who confined the symbiote called Carnage and its human carrier with 20 life sentences without the right to parole, and with an order of execution in the electric chair, and more because like its tenant, he is a murderer, genocidal, psychopath, maniac, and is emotionally unstable called Cletus Cassidy. The symbiote saw that he did not hit the ground and took the blade that was his hand out of the ground to stare at Issei, but when he saw him he felt something, but then he smiled showing his sharp teeth and then got into an attack pose and with his other hand, transforming his sharp nails. Issei, who was on the defensive, looked at him seriously, calculating where he would go next, what he would do or how he would attack. Those were some of Issei's thoughts at this moment, so he stayed still for a few seconds, but the red symbiote jumped to the right to a thick concrete pillar. But the strange thing is that when it touched the concrete pillar it didn't fall, it stayed there with its feet stuck like a spider, but Issei didn't have time to think because Carnahe jumped towards him again. It was then that Issei summoned Step. Carnage with his blades gave a shortcut to Issei, but he covered himself with Ascalon. The symbiote jumped doing a backflip and then ran to the left of Issei, who only remained still with Ascalon in his left hand. He felt carnage wherever he went, then carnage jumped behind Issei with extremely fast speed with his blade hand, but Issei moved his left hand, putting Ascalon as a shield again. The sparks when they collided could be seen, and the loud sound of two objects colliding with each other. When carnage hit the ground, Issei took the opportunity to put pressure on him. But what Issei didn't realize was that in Carnage's other hand, a kind of whip was formed that grabbed Issei's left arm and then threw him a few meters, thus crashing into the concrete wall, cracking it in the process. Issei, who just stood up as if nothing happened and with Ascalon in his hand, still shook off the clothes that were dusted. Carnage saw how strange he was, so he stood firm like that, looking intimidating and then seeming to want to talk. Issei was the first to speak. He was a little surprised at first that he tried to talk to him, knowing that he is a genocidal madman. Issei. I see that you are cunning and strong, he said, but he still did not speak. What is wrong? Can't you talk? Well, you are supposed to be an animal according to my contacts. It seems to be true. The symbiote didn't even flinch at the comment, it just stared at Issei and then smiled again with those sharp teeth like a predator stalking its prey, and then spoke with a deep rough voice, but with some grace in it. Carnage. Who are you, human? No, you are not human. No human can emit such a disgusting bloodlust like yours, so who are you really? Said the great red symbiote. Issei, no one in particular, but first it would not be rude if you told me who you are first, or should I say who are you too? Issei said seriously, looking at the symbiote. Carnage was surprised by this and then laughed like crazy. Carnage. Haha. Cletus. Hello, good evening, young man, my name is Cletus Cassidy and my friend here is Carnage, but well, you should know that, right? Said the man, already identified as Cletus. Issei. It's true, I've been investigating both of you, but first my name is Issei, he said and introduced himself to the two. Cletus. So what, Issei? It's good to know the name of the person I'm going to kill first, he said, and then a red mass almost covered him, but he stopped when he went for the head. He stopped, leaving it uncovered. I will enjoy your death. Issei. And who decided that? He said seriously with eyes colder than ice itself. Cletus. Who? We will be the ones who will kill you, do you know why? He said so that the rest of the red mass of his body would disperse over his face, covering it, but leaving half of his face uncovered, because we are Carnage. This is how the fight restarted. The one that started with the two round was Carnage, that pushed himself forward towards Issei, but he protected himself with his sword and supported himself by stepping on the floor so as not to lose his balance due to the onslaught of the symbiote. When Carnage saw that Issei defended himself, he took the opportunity to attack, so with a whip that came out of his back with a sharp black tip only at the tip and the rest with red with black lines. He shot towards Issei directly to the abdomen, but something came out behind Issei of black with red, but it was more black than red. That was a tail, but not just any tail, but a dragon tail that went to protect the abdomen. The two collided with each other, and when doing so, sparks came out which affirmed that both are of high resistance and durability. Carnage is surprised when he sees the tail, but then that feeling turns into pleasure when he knows that he could devour something new, something that is not human or animal. Cletus, who was inside Carnage, was able to read his thoughts, so he gave Carnage permission to play however he wants, which means that the beast broke free without holding back. During that moment, Issei, who protected himself, felt his instinct telling him to be on guard, but before he did, a red tentacle grabbed his foot, causing Issei to lose balance, but he didn't fall to the ground because he was thrown to the other side of the warehouse, breaking two columns and a wall last in the process, thus creating a smoke screen. The symbiote stared at the place where he threw it to see if it survived or not. Cletus on the other hand felt something wrong, so he spoke to his tenant mentally. Cletus. Hey, something's wrong, he said mentally to the symbiote. Carnage. What's happening? What's wrong? The symbiote responded, but without stopping looking at the place. Cletus. This guy, MNNNN. Ah, Issei, I feel something strange about him. We should be careful. He said, warning his tenant. Carnage. Are you afraid of a simple boy? Said the symbiote, somewhat surprised coming from its carrier. Cletus. It's not that, it's that there's something strange about that boy. He was able to defend himself from you, and after him came out a kind of tail. I don't think that boy is not human. I think it's something else. I think he survived the impact of the blow, so that's why if we want to kill him, we must be on guard, and if we kill him you can eat them, so be on guard. Understood, Cletus explained a little to his tenant. Carnage. Understood, I'll be on guard and then we'll devour it. Ha 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 ha. I can't imagine what it will taste like. Ha 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 ha, he said, and the symbiote laughed madly at the thought of how to kill and eat it. Outside the thoughts of the two, footsteps were heard where the hole in the wall was, but the dust did not let them see. Carnage prepared to attack if he saw him at the moment. The footsteps were heard louder, which meant that he was approaching, but in the thick dust a red light could be seen, and a body with torn and dusty clothes could be seen. It was Issei, but apparently he was angry. Angry with himself for letting his guard down, he always got excited with fights, thanks to his sensei who gave him that fetish. Now he couldn't criticize volley. That feeling when fighting and wanting more felt great, but leaving that aside, he was angry, so he had to suppress it with something or in someone. Issei, who was walking towards Carnage with a red glow in his left eye, went straight to Carnage with his sword in hand. The desire to fight flooded Issei in a moment. The symbiote stood on guard, its right hand transformed into an axe with a pointed rear tip and the left hand into a sword with protruding spikes, and from its back came tentacles with sharp tips. But from one moment to another Issei disappeared from Carnage's sight. That was impossible. He had him in front of him, but by instinct he jumped, and when he did he saw that the ground came out Issei with the sword pointing at him. Carnage was surprised, but became confused again at not seeing Issei again, something that made him angry. "Carnage, show yourself walking food," said the angry symbiote. "Issei. So here I am," said Issei, who appeared out of nowhere from behind. When Carnage heard Issei's voice behind him he turned around, but in doing so he received a direct hit to the face, causing him to crash into the ground, but it didn't end there. When Carnage crashed, he felt like a truck ran over him, just as his carrier felt the impact. But when trying to get up he saw Issei coming from above, but it was too late to dodge Issei, with both his legs charged at Carnage burying him in the ground, then grabbed Carnage's foot to throw him. But suddenly another Carnage with its tentacles grabbed Issei's legs, causing him to lose balance. Then he jumped near a pillar, and then pulled out that same pillar, and then threw it at Issei, who quickly got up and put his arms as protectors. Issei stepped back a little from the impact of the pillar that was consequently destroyed, but he saw that a Carnage arm of his symbiotic mass moved to his right hand forming an axe but a little small. But what surprised Issei was that he was able to throw it separating it from his body. Issei tried to dodge it, but his feet couldn't move because some tentacles prevented them, which held his feet. The projectile approached Issei who couldn't move, but he stayed still making both Carnage and Cletus think that he accepted his fate, but how wrong they were. The small axe hit but not Issei, but a black barrier that covered him. The object fell to the ground, but became a mass again returning to the Carnage body, as well as the tentacles that held Issei. The symbiote no longer had any doubts. The guy in front of him was not a human, not even one of those humans who could obtain powers like the enemy of his father or others who have been found but died at his hands. Issei, who put up the barrier, saw through it how Carnage remained still, so now at least in this circumstance he could talk with him, so he prepared to remove the barrier. Issei calmed down a little, making a sigh. Issei. "Well, I think it seems that you have some questions just like I do, so shall we talk?" Issei said, but still on guard, he would not let himself be trusted again. The blood-red symbiote thought and thought, he had doubts, but on the other hand he wanted to eat it, but his instinct said that if he continued, it could end badly for him, so he reluctantly had to accept. "Carnage. Okay, but we'll start first. What are you?" he said, looking at Issei. Issei. "Well, first I am actually a humanoid dragon over 18 years old, but most who know me think I am only 18, he said just like that. "Carnage. Dragon," he said, remembering some fragments of his father's memories that remained in him when he split up, where he saw a tall being with long white hair and a kind of black armor, but on his chest with a dragon symbol. But leaving that aside, he asked something. "Are you a dragon? Aren't they from fairy tales?" "Ha ha 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 ha. Issei. Does this seem like a fairy tale to you?" he said, so that his features became dragon-like, as if a black tail with a bit of red came out again, but with a sharp tip with thorns around it, but it seemed that they retracted into itself. His arms grew scales, and his hands at the tips became sharp. His face seemed a little more straight with rectilinear red eyes with a vertical black iris like a snake. At that, Carnage was very surprised, as was his carrier, that something did exist. Issei. "Well, now I think it's my turn to ask, do you want to join my mercenary group?" he said that simply. "Carnage." Issei. "To put it more simply, I want you to join my group that I'm forming. There are still members missing. I'll be honest, there's only 1 out of 4 that I've been looking for, and that one accepted, so I'm glad you accepted." I explained more simply to see if I could convince him that way. "Carnage. What do I get out of this?" "You'll just use me as a weapon for sure," he said, believing it would be like this. That made Issei angry because he was changed by the girls for other men just like that, as if a toy were thrown away if it was no longer useful as a weapon that has no meaning whatsoever. From thinking about it so much, the power of Issei that he had suppressed a lot began to filter through the place, but the strange thing was that the power that he expelled was very dense. Even Carnage himself could see it, and it was a dark color. For a moment Carnage saw behind Issei a shadow with wild features of tall stature with 2 horns, long hair with torn clothes and a black sword, and a strange hole in the chest with black lines coming out of it towards the head, looking at him with negative emotions, in addition to releasing an enormous power that made the place tremble. No, the entire abandoned area. Issei, who was careless, released a bit of his power, but stopped after realizing it. Issei. I'm sorry I got carried away. He apologized for his lack of control, but there were two beings that had caused such dangerous power. Those were Drake and Ascalon. Using you as a weapon in itself was not my objective. What I want is to change the world a little. I know you are one of the evils, but I see that there is potential in you, so tell me, give up doing this and join me. Carnage, who stood still thinking, replied. Carnage. What would I gain from that? I am a monster that eats every living being, and that is what I literally live off of. Tell me, how are you going to solve this? Tell me. Ha 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 ha, said, laughed the symbiote at that logic, because in itself he needed to feed, and if he didn't he would resort to eating his own host, but that would be his last resort. Issei. Well, actually I have a torture section there. You can eat whatever you want from the guilty ones that are not necessary for the world. What do you think? Said Issei, seeing if he could at least change the aptitude of the symbiote as its carrier, in addition to the fact that if it is true that there are scum that should not live in this world, maybe his past self would not want it, but now he is another person. Carnage. It's tempting, but why me? I'm still scum like you say. I kill and devour indiscriminately, be it man, woman, child or elderly. I'll do it anyway, so tell me. I said Carnage to know why. Issei. What I want is for you to vent your hunger to kill and devour just like your Cletus, so tell me, will you join me? I will also let you do your job as you wish, but I will decide where, when, or with whom you will appear. Carnage. It's fine with me, you convinced me about killing and devouring, but it's another story if my carrier says no, said the symbiote to return inside its carrier. Issei. Tell me, do you accept? I will let you torture beings who must suffer for their actions, he said, to see if they accepted the deal. Cletus. I think that's fine, but I don't like the part where you're going to give me orders, you know. He said to the suspicious one about what they will give him orders for. Issei. Well, I'll have to do it, but look on the bright side, I'll mostly let you do whatever you want, plus I can teach you various forms of torture, he said to show him a very gloomy face, but with a small smile that made him scary. A genocidal maniac liked that expression because he would learn other ways to torture and kill, so he gladly accepted. Cletus. We are at your service, good young Issei. By the way, who is another one who joined the group? He said, the last thing to know which partner he will get. Issei. You should know him, he lives in the same city, his name is Deadpool, he said seriously, but he saw how Cletus smiled a little. Cletus. Oh, so the red transvestite is with you, it will be even funnier than I thought, ha ha ha, he said, and then the symbiote came out, but give me some time, we need to finish some pending things here first, then we'll see what we do to contact him, ha ha ha. Issei. I hope they are just delinquents, okay? He said, staring at him. Carnage. Cletus. So quickly you start ordering me around, eh? Boss. Said both the symbiote and the human. Issei. If they are just delinquents, rapists, drug dealers, thieves, etc. Even villains would not matter to me, kill them, devour them, torture them, but not innocent people until I say so, but for the rest, do whatever is necessary to eliminate the scum that is there, he said with empty eyes without any shine in it, as if he were a living dead, in addition to a dark aura surrounding him. In that, for the first time in their lives, Cletus and Carnage felt a fear they had never known before, not even with their fight with a little spider or with their father Venom, they could feel such fear as now, it was as if they were going to die. At that moment, they knew that if they made their new little boss angry, they could not imagine what atrocious punishment he would give them, so they accepted the conditions. Before leaving, Issei gave a card to the pair of genocidal companions on how to contact them, because they suggested how to communicate, and later they would tell them about the supernatural world. In this respect, both the mass genocidaires and our carrier each went their own way. Place Haidu House. Issei's room. 7:40 p.m. From a vortex came out Issei but changed his clothes because first he went quickly to the base and changed, now he returned to his old appearance, the one before the ritual, so as not to raise suspicion as always, still, he prepared to lie down on his bed to rest at least a little. He had a very tiring day. But at least he could find his first two members for his team, in addition to the fact that the two accepted, well technically there are three, but in the same way what is important is that they accepted, that put him in a good mood, thus giving a great relief, but then he remembered that tomorrow he would look for Virgil, who according to the information is in Italy on a plateau. He wanted to go to him first because it is not known how exact it is, because he could be seen gone that instead of the other, which is Alucard, who according to the report is in England in an organization called Helsing, that he was its current leader, because the previous one, who was a woman named Integra Freiburg Wingates Helsing, died of old age at 97 years old, so Alucard, being the most active, took the position, and with your second in command will be Victoria, a very strong vampire. Which one to go first would be Virgil, because according to the information it is known that he is very lonely and is one of those people who does not stay for a long time, instead of Alucard, who would be in the organization for his current position. So Issei got ready to get out of bed to go to the bathroom in the hallway, so he had to leave his room. When he left he checked if there was any trace of the girls, which confirmed that they were not there, so he went straight to the bathroom at the end of the hallway. When he got to the front of the door and entered the bathroom he began to undress. When Issei, already covered by a white bath towel around his waist, entered the bathroom, it was something modern, but at the same time traditional that gave a comfortable environment. He was the first to wash himself. Already washed, he went to bathe in the pastel-colored ceramic bathtub with hot water. When he entered, he felt comfortable and relaxed. For a moment he sank into his thoughts. In his mind he wondered if what he was doing was right, if killing those people was right, what would his loved ones think if they knew that he had killed living beings in that way, what would happen? He thought, from the day he truly opened his eyes, that the beings that make the balance of good and evil become unbalanced, making evil predominate should be eliminated, but many things that he will have to do to prevent that will be actions that many of the majority would think were from a crazy mind or something like that, but in that he remembered some words from his master Trihexa. Listen tadpole, even though people around you think the things you do are wrong, you'll keep doing them because you know it's for the well-being of most of them, right? So well you think it's really for their good over yours, believe in that, don't listen to them, don't doubt yourself because if you do you'll be doubting the very reason for your existence in this world. I know because the same thing happened to me at some point, I know you went through a lot, but you faced it and look at the progress you've made. There will be beings who forgot you or will forget you, others who hate you or will hate you or others who betray or will betray, but there will be some who love you or will love you, some who are happy or will be able to be happy with you and others who never abandoned you or will abandon you, so strive to create your path, your destiny. Your life nothing is impossible if you don't try so become strong my apprentice tadpole to reach your dreams and your own happiness, so let's continue with the tort cough sorry my throat is dry with the training ha 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 ha. Issei thought about his master's words, he really would do unpleasant things for the sake of his loved ones, those ideals he had before the ritual would never change. At that his lips curved upwards forming a tiny smile, at that he remembered his friend from the May Cafe, her cute white hair, her brown eyes, her angelic face, they made him feel something inside his heart. It made him feel strange, since after the accident he thought that maybe he would never love again, that warm feeling in his chest, that his body relaxed and felt calm, he never thought he would feel it again. Issei. What is this feeling I have? And why do I think about May? What is happening to me? Were the thoughts of his current feelings as he looked at his hands and realized they were shaking slightly, which made him nervous after so much time that this did not happen, and even in his training with his sensei in the time dimension they never shook, so what was happening? That was the questionable question that Issei had now. Issei still looked at his hands that were shaking slightly, while his eyes seemed serious, he was actually nervous, but there were two beings who knew what was happening. In a mental space split in two, one was white, but there was a wooden floor with some millionaire-style sofas, and the other was red, but there was a volcanic earth floor with a hole with lava. From the lava hole came out a red dragon with emerald eyes that approached the limit of the barrier on the other side. And on the other side on one of the sofas there was a blonde-haired man with extravagant clothes, who got up doing the same as the dragon going straight to the limit of his own mental space. The two looked at each other seriously, that was because they felt their partner nervous and saw what was happening they had to do something. Greg. I think it's time to do something with my partner, right? Asked Lon. If it's true, it's time to do it. By the way, do you think we should tell him that, the reason he is like that? Greg. I think so, Issei, even though after performing the ritual I'm surprised that he's still a clueless person in romantic relationships, I think he'll never change. Asked Lon. Oh, but who did he learn it from? Greg. What are you implying? Asked Lon. According to what the brat told me, and more so you, the fight you had with Tammy it was for his treasure, but I know there was something else. Greg. I don't know what you're talking about. Asked Lon. You had some interest in her as she did, but with your battle you forgot about it, but she didn't, until you used her treasures that you finally lost, you never realized that she was interested in you, but you didn't know it. Greg. I think you're right, only when I was locked up here I was able to realize it, but let's not talk about it anymore, what we need is for Issei to realize it before something happens that breaks him more than he is, isn't that right? Asked Lon. It is true that the ritual purified him of those dark feelings, but instead of erasing them, he concentrated them, making them an evil dragon, and locking his positive feelings in that crystal ball. At this moment, his mind is in a state of defense, meaning that it protects him from other psychological damage. The one he had a long time ago broke him, but superficially. If there is another, it is most likely that he will break mentally as well as spiritually, so we must avoid that. Greg. I agree, it's time to show him what's wrong. Asked Lon. Yes, sometimes you have to wake people from their dreams to show them the harsh reality, no matter how beautiful they are, they will always be destroyed by the truth. Greg. Where did you get that from? Asked Lon. Ah, I saw it in a series, it's very good, I recommend it to you. Dreg. Aha, let's forget about that, let's talk to Issei. Ascalon. Let's go then. At that the two of them left the mental space. Outside the space, Issei had not yet taken off. He looked at his hands for 5 minutes without doing them, but at one point two lights appeared and then his two companions appeared. Issei. Gee guys, what's wrong? Dreg. Dude, no, Issei, what's wrong with you? Issei. Nothing. Dreg. Issei, we know something is wrong with you. Ascalon. It's true you don't behave normally. Issei. Well, it's just that I don't feel well. Dreg. You don't feel well since you saw me, right? Issei. What are you talking about? Even that I confirm something in Dragi Ascalon. Dreg. Issei, what happens when you're with May? Issei. And that question. Dreg. Issei, please just answer. Issei. Well, it's just that after the ritual I felt almost nothing at all, only feelings like admiration and a little affection for the few who did not leave me aside, like my two senseis, my parents, friends, family, the rest is like a black void without filling, he said, feeling warm, but at the end his gaze seemed gloomy without shine. His face seemed dead but continued, but different when I'm with May I feel safe and somewhat happy, I don't feel alone or depressed, it's like she was someone very important in my heart, but in reality I only met her very recently, which is strange, but I feel like I've known her for a long time. At that the two who were watching Issei looked at him with shining eyes and joy, because they confirmed that he could help their best partner. Ascalon. Brad, I think what he feels is love. At that revelation Issei was left with his eyes open as well as his lips moving, but he said nothing until he remained very still, something that worried Dreg and Ascalon, but after a few seconds he asked something, but without looking at them. Issei. Guys, do you think I can love again? Dreg. Of course Issei, if you set your mind to do it, you will do it. Ascalon. What the lizard said is true. Issei, who heard his friend say that, thought for a moment, then Dreg and Ascalon heard something fall on the surface of the water in the bathtub, it sounded like drops, but they saw that the drops were tears. At that moment Issei raised his face to his companions, who were surprised to see him. Issei was crying silently but with a smile on his face. Issei. Thanks guys. Dreg. You're welcome mate. Ascalon. You're welcome, so will you tell Linda May how you feel? Issei. Not yet, first I will look to recruit that Virgil, he said, drying his tears with his hand. First we are going to go to Italy, according to it is on a plateau. The information said that he was the son of General II Sparta, a demon who commanded legions that earned the nickname called devils for their power and appearances. The general-in-chief was Mondus. Though according to the reports he betrayed the demons for wanting power, it is said that he died, but we know nothing. From what has happened to me, destiny can be unpredictable. But forgetting that detail for now, it is said that Sparta between the fight with the factions protected the humans, as well as an archangel from heaven who was Eve. From there it is said that they fell in love, but I never thought they had two children. According to the report, Virgil is more cooperative than his twin brother named Dante, that's why I chose the most convenient one. Besides that, Dante is said to be lazy and eats junk food by the tons, but his strength is comparable to that of his father, but likewise, I prefer one that works than one that is lazy. I finished the explanation. Dreg. Well, I know something about the devil Sparta, I actually faced him when I went to look for the treasure of Tamiat to fight the White, it was splendid to fight with a being like that. If I compare him with some of the current tops, I would say that he would be on par with the Mao Lucifer, because Sparta himself told me that he was inferior to the old Mao Lucifer, but that he gave him a fight, so basically his power is equivalent to the current Mao's. If he is really his son, his power can be like a super demon or a Mao. So we must be attentive just in case, he said, remembering that he once fought with Sparta. But suddenly Dreg felt a look, and it was from both Issei and Ascalon, who were staring at him with judging eyes. Dreg. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Ascalon. This filthy beast. Dreg. Why do you call me that? Ascalon. And you ask. Dry. But what did I say? That's what Issei said. Issei. Drag. Dreg. Yes. Issei. Why didn't you say anything before? Dreg. Issei. You have 5 seconds to answer. Dreg. Well Issei 5. Dreg. Is that? Issei 4. Dreg. Issei 3. Dreg. Nobody asked me so I didn't say it. Issei. 2. Dreg. Well okay, I forgot happy. Dreg replied before Issei finished the countdown, but he was hit in the head, burying it almost completely in the ground. Issei. 1, that wasn't an answer I needed. Ascalon. Hey, are you still alive? Ascalon said, crouching down looking at Dreg who wasn't moving. Dreg. CC shut up, he said barely with his head still buried. Ascalon. I think you overdid it, he said, already standing up looking at Issei. Issei. Do you want to try it yourself? He said, raising his hand slightly and making his fingers move, causing them to sound. Ascalon. I think I did deserve it, he said, looking away with a face saying, it's better to keep quiet sometimes. Oh, I think you'll have to fix it and explain the noise. Issei. Huh? He said without understanding until he felt the energies of the others, which bothered him for not being careful without even putting up an anti-sound and anti-aura barrier. I will do it quickly while you come back, things will get complicated if you discover things. Ascalon. Understood, he said to get Drake off the bathroom floor, who apparently was unconscious now. Ascalon wonders if it was a reflex that he answered him, but in the same way he took the dragon back to Issei. Goodbye Issei, remember what we talked about? Issei. Okay, he said to see that Ascalon and Drake, who were still unconscious, left. When they did, he began to repair the floor so that a black mass came out of Issei's hand, that he lowered his hand to the floor, touching it, that by doing so the black mass began to rebuild the floor. That was only a second, I finished. He stood up, only to have the door swung open. The one who appeared was Zenobia, holding Exurandal in her hands. Zenobia. What happened here? Issei, what are you doing? She said, because she heard a noise like a blow, and she went with the sacred sword to see what was happening, and was surprised to see Issei, because she did not feel his aura. Issei. Hello, he said to walk to her, but actually just to take a towel that was next to her. Zenobia noticed that he was naked, which made her blush. Zenobia. Hello, she said, lowering the sword, looking to the other side with a little embarrassment, but she glanced at Issei's body, who was approaching her. Zenobia now saw Issei's toned muscles, but not exaggerated, which made her blush more, and saw that Issei was getting closer. It seemed that time was slow for Zenobia, who saw Issei all over his body, but what surprised her the most was the most visible anatomy of the male body. That Zenobia, upon seeing him, stayed fixed for a moment, with a blush increasing even more with smoke coming out of her ears. Issei saw what Zenobia saw, but he didn't care about anything she did or about her. He continued walking towards the towel. Zenobia took a few steps back, her mind was in chaos when Issei was centimeters away from her. The girl wanted to take a step to throw herself at him, because her instincts told her that she should do it, which she was doing, but suddenly, Issei stepped past her, which surprised her, and she stood still. At that moment, she looked over to see that Issei was just approaching the towels. Issei looked at her over his shoulders for a moment without her noticing, so she was still surprised. When the towel was ready, he turned around so he could connect glances with Zenobia. Issei. What are you looking at? Zenobia. Huh? And nothing. Issei. Well. Bye. Zenobia. Wait. Issei. What's wrong? I want to go to my bed. Zenobia. Well, it's just that you seem like you're not looking at me. Issei. Really? Zenobia. Yes, what's wrong? Issei. Nothing of your concern. But to the misfortune of the chestnut, the door opened again to show Asia, Irina, Kaneko, Riaz, Akeno and Riavel, who appeared with the same intention as Zenobia. The girls upon entering saw Zenobia with a durandal in her hand, blushing deeply, and then they saw Issei, but upon seeing him they were stunned by his muscles, something that Issei began to irritate her. Riaz. What happened here? Zenobia. Well. Irina. Zenobia, what were you doing to darling? Asia. Issei-sen, you must not do it without me first. Kaneko. Perverted senpai. Akeno. Now that Issei-kun is like this, should I take advantage of it for a night of fun? Fu. Riavel. Issei-sama, you shouldn't do it at this hour. But from one moment to the next the girls felt a tense aura and heard. Issei. Can you be quiet for a second please? Girls. Huh? Issei. Didn't you hear, they're noisy, do you know what time it is? It's around 8 at night, can it bother the neighbors? Riaz. Well, I think you're right, but don't talk to me like that please, okay? Issei. Okay, I understand, so I'll go. When Issei left, the girls looked at each other surprised by Issei's behavior. The first to speak was Asia. Asia. Girls, what do you think will happen to Issei-san? Zenobia. I don't know, but when he saw me I felt like he was looking at me with indifference or like I was a stranger. Irina. Wait, what do you mean? Zenobia. Physically changed in a very good way. Akeno. We know that, we just saw a very glamorous show-off Fu. Riaz. Yes, but the way he silenced us is as if he were another person. Riavel. Riaz-sama. Riaz. Yes. Riavel. Do you think what we're doing to Issei-sama is okay? Riaz. Well, we want to know how to be in a relationship, right? Irina. But shouldn't we do it with Drailing? I still have that doubt. Riaz. We want to make Issei happy, that's why we have to do it secretly from him and then surprise him. Besides, won't we be his wives later on? Akeno. Well, we don't have experience in romantic relationships, so there is some truth in having experiences to show Issei-kun that we love him. Asia. I think it makes some sense, but what matters to me is that I want Issei-san to be happy. The other girls agree with Asia. The reason they go out with other boys is that they want to make Issei happy, after all they will be his wives in the future. Irina. By the way, where is Rose Issei-sensei? I didn't see her today. Bekeno. She said she would be visiting her grandmother in Asgard, so she should come tomorrow afternoon. Rias. I see, well girls, let's go back to our dormitories. The girls then went to their bedrooms but saw that Kaneko stood still, staring into space. Irina. What's wrong, Kaneko-chan? Kaneko. Nekomata did not respond, she just stared at a more exact place where Issei was standing when he raised his voice. At that Zenobia approached to touch her. Zenobia. Kaneko. Kaneko. Huh? Asia. Are you okay, Kaneko-chan? Kaneko. Yes, I'm fine. Irina. Why did you stand still there looking at where darling was? Kaneko. It's just that. Bekeno. What Kaneko? Kaneko. I just felt that senpai's aura was very strange like last time. Rias. How? Kaneko. Violent, dark, powerful, Zenobia. So you felt the same as me? Irina. What do you mean you too, Zenobia? Zenobia. When I came in, he looked at me, not in a perverted way or ashamed of himself for being naked, he looked at me seriously as if he didn't care. I felt like he was repudiating me. Asia. Wait, you said the same thing just now, didn't you? Zenobia. I'm saying it again because it seems I was right, I think he's upset that I'm not paying attention to him. Bekeno. No, or could it be that he discovered us? Rias. No, it can't be, it's Issei, well he's probably just a little upset for not paying attention to him, that's all. Asia. Do you believe in that, Rias Onasama? Rias. Yes, I just think we should spend more time with Issei. Bekeno. I hope it's just that. At that point the girls began to leave the bathroom to go to their respective rooms on the different floors of the mansion. But what they didn't know was that a shadow that was in the doorway began to move strangely only for a hand, and then a black arm to come out of it to lean on the floor, and then another hand to repeat the action came out and leaned on the floor only for a black head with green eyes to begin to come out. Followed by what seemed to be a body with a human shape, all its body that came out of the shadow of the bathroom door in the hallway of the mansion. It looked like a dark being, but then something happened, the humanoid shadow began to get agitated only to begin to disappear, but in doing so, it revealed that it was only a person, but not just anyone but one with blood-colored hair. Emerald green eyes and a well-formed face like his body, that is what was seen because he was only wearing a towel around his waist, the person in question in the eyes of the tenants of this serious business, but in reality is the person who was being cheated on without knowing it, the person who only apparently inside of him nah. And inside of many, in my opinion, they made him unfaithful. That they abandoned him for others, as did the faction leaders who took credit for the most part, they toyed with him, but now it's over, it's game over time for them, he will show him who is the strongest, he will show him the new Issei, how powerful he is, and always will be. Issei. You will see that you will regret doing it, you never thought about my feelings or what I thought, always first yourself then the others, I will open your eyes, and then you will see, said Issei, well his eyes shone in the darkness of the hallway, but it was not a bright shine, but a dark shine. His eyes were cold and deadly, that at the same time you can see that the look was beautiful from the perspective of many, but inside it was something else that Drake and Ascalon could notice, Issei's soul that was like yin and yang, that is, a black side and a white side, was broken, causing his dark side to predominate. On alert to the two companions of the deed, if he became corrupted or went crazy, there would be a massacre in the place where he is, so they decided to stop him. The one who was going to do it was Drake. Drake. Calm down, buddy, the dragon said calmly to its bearer. Issei. Drag them, but he was interrupted by the dragon. Drake. Mate, I know that the idea of the Grimoire is ridiculous and stupid, but forget it, otherwise you will be consumed by the negative emotions that make an evil dragon be in a state of rage. You remember the last time, right? In your master's fight, when he almost knocked you out, but then you used that, remember? Issei, who stood still, opened his eyes for almost the foolishness that he was going to do. That he used had two faces. The first was to let himself be controlled by anger and madness. That he had an incredible power that made his attacks brutally deadly as well as precise, and the other was a state of dark thought, but it made that whoever he fought with never lost, and that his opponent was eliminated in any way, but that last form did not make him recognize anything around him, it made him feel powerful, but nothing else mattered to him. In short, he became a beast with the sole objective, which is to search and eliminate. The only time was with a fight with the master, that he used it for the first time. That was actually a derivation of the balance breaker, but he let himself go because his body and soul were almost destroyed by using a power excessively for the first time, but for the first time, by using that power. He was able to cause incredible damage to his master, but thanks to the high-level regeneration of him and his master, they were able to save themselves, but even healed Issei still had pain in his body, and it was that his power apparently had a function. The curse that when touched he would suffer a persistent pain that apparently also affected his master, but they were able to solve it and undo the curse, but it was too complicated, so Issei's master had to tell him that he can only use that power when it is truly an extreme emergency, because it can even take his life if he goes too far. When Issei remembered that he calmed down, the good thing is that he still maintained his anti-aura field, so as not to be detected by the residents of the mansion or around the nearby area, so he returned to a previous appearance of a brown-haired man with amber eyes. Issei. Guys, thanks, he said in his mind, thanking his two companions for calming him down and not doing something crazy. Ask Londrag. You're welcome, said the two beings while smiling a little. But that Issei went to his room to go to bed and sleep. Tomorrow he would go to Italy to look for Virgil. Sunday. Place Hyadu House, Issei's room. Time. 4:30 a.m. Issei, who slowly opened his eyes, the moonlight disappearing along with the bright sunlight that was appearing illuminating his room. The brunette began to get up from his bed, but was interrupted by a soft brush of something soft. Feeling it, he turned his head, where he felt it, which was on his left arm. Seeing that it was his calm face became one of annoyance but minimal. The reason was because a girl was on the left side of the bed hugging his arm, but without his permission. That girl was Asia, who was sleeping peacefully in a one-piece outfit that reached to the abdomen, green but very transparent with white panties next to Issei, but on the contrary, Issei neither liked it nor despised it. Only what bothered him was that he entered without his permission and slept with him. That was what bothered him. Without further ado, Issei began to change his appearance, but in doing so his body began to turn black until it looked like last night. Issei in his shadow form slid across the bed so that his body became very thin, slim and small to pass between the girl's body without waking her up. When he got out of bed he saw that he didn't wake Asia up, so he went straight to the bathroom. He left the room carefully, taking care not to make noise when opening and closing the door. After the bath he went straight to his base with a bathrobe on. Issei's base in the forest. Time. 5:20 a.m. When Issei arrived at his base he looked for clothes to go to Italy, according to what he was on a plateau near a fishing coast. I searched to see what to wear, but in reality all the suits had the same function, which is to erase their aura, smell and appearance. Among the outfits he chose something comfortable. Now he was white-haired with red eyes wearing a decent but well-dressed suit. Without further ado he went to look at his computer to again review the information about Virgil, his abilities, behavior, all the basics that should be known about him. His name was Virgil Sparta, his age was mysterious, but according to his appearance he would be in his 30s. According to family history he said he is the son of the great Dark Knight Sparta, who was one of the strongest generals of Lucifer in history, and Eva, Virgil's mother, who was the archangel but was turned into a human for loving a demon. She became human instead of a fallen angel, because her angel brothers seemed very cruel to her, so only at least a farewell was to turn her into a human with some of her sacred powers. They lived happily. Got married and had twin children to be exact. One was Virgil, who was the oldest between the two of them, the other was Dante. According to following events, the family was attacked by beings who hated them, but more Sparta, the children disappearing with a clear thought that they could be dead. The one who was confirmed dead was her mother, who apparently he died protecting them. The whereabouts of his father is still unknown. He is missing, but it is believed that he died fighting to avenge his family and his beloved wife. That is the detail of the information that could be collected from his childhood. Currently it is now said that the twins are alive. It was confirmed because the younger twin is now like a bounty hunter in a red trench coat with an establishment called Devil May Cry, but in reality his job is to defeat the demons that remained that were called devils, but there were many because the old generation left offspring in abundance, so there were many of them to kill. But the bad thing was that he was lazy and careless, but he was strong, and he is also an expert in firearms and swordsmanship. After that he tried to find the other one that was really very difficult, but in the end he found it, apparently in contrast to his brother Dante, who is outgoing and energetic. Virgil is serious, calm and cold. He generally does not care about others or his environment beyond his own goals. Unlike his brother who tries to deny his demonic heritage, he is proud to be the son of the legendary Dark Knight, longing for his power and to become a true demon. Although he loves his mother Eva and does not despise humans, he feels that his human heritage makes him incomplete and weak. His warrior code prevents him from using firearms as he considers them unworthy and very inelegant in a combat, which is why he only uses weapons that depend on his own skill. He is said to be an honorable warrior, but his moral ethics are questionable as more than once he tried to eliminate his enemies without warning. Although he may seem like a self-assured person, the truth is that he feels insecure about himself or in front of Dante, firmly believing that his mother loved his brother more than him, or having the idea that by gaining his father's power, he would not need anyone or fear anything. This makes him feel guilty about his mother's death, thus beginning his obsession with obtaining greater power. After reviewing the document, Issei understood that Virgil just didn't want to lose anyone else, that's why he seeks power. Thinking about that, a curve crossed his lips. What will Virgil be capable of at his maximum power? That excited Issei. So he went to Italy, on the plateau near a fishing coast. Place Italy, a plateau near a fishing coast in southern Italy. Time: 6 a.m. in Japan. In Italy it is 7 a.m. On the plateau, in her village, right in a corner that was hidden in the shadows, Issei appeared. Upon arriving, he looked around and confirmed that no one could see him. He went to walk around the place. Upon doing so, he was attracted by the beauty of the place. The dawn of the day illuminated the place very well, and more than that, people began to leave their houses to work or do their homework. He also saw children leave their houses to play. That made Issei think that even though the world has its evil, there will always be goodness in it. He realized that he was a little distracted from what he should do. According to the report, Virgil should be in a house near a rock. It was said that there was a sanctuary near the coast in the sea below it, which granted power to a worthy being. Surely Virgil heard about it, so he must have been here to gather more information. Issei went straight to the rock, taking the fastest route to it, according to a map he saw of the city. As he walked, he felt power both divine and demonic. The only thing that could give off that unusual energy was Virgil, but if possible it could be a group of demons and angels or fallen angels, so he prepared to see what would happen. He intensified his run towards the Sparta's location. Seeing that he moved away from the town enough, he summoned Ascalon, preparing his guard to the top so as not to be careless again. Getting there quickly was essential for him. Issei saw the rock in the distance. There he saw a house, but when he did, he saw figures flying over it. He saw horrendous figures, very horrible looking monsters of the same shape. These were the demons called devils, a type of demon that gained more power, but due to their aggressive temperament, no one approached them. But he looked down after feeling a greater energy. When he did, he saw the so-called Dark Slayer, Virgil Sparta, serene on the ground looking at his opponents from the sky. When one began to approach, the albino grabbed his katana, which when he did, the demon was cut in half without any problem with 2 slashes with his katana. The other devils could not see the movement of the Sparta's katana, but Issei saw every movement of his arm, which was very precise and at an extremely high speed. But after watching him, the other devils began to attack again. The Sparta makes them remember why he is called the Dark Slayer. He took a step, but in doing so, he buried his left foot hard in the ground, grabbing his katana, only to take it out at an incredible speed towards the entire horde of devils that gathered to confront him, but it was a big mistake. By doing so, Virgil had already prevented that move. The Sparta released a flurry of frontal stabs at supersonic speed and millimetrically precise. I couldn't put the gifts because they didn't let me, sorry. The albino's precision was only exceptional. Issei only saw that he was able to defeat the horde of devils that were there. Issei. It seems he didn't need me, he said as he watched the rest of the devils fade into dust. Virgil, who was watching the remains of the devils fade away, sheathed his katana, Yamato, only to notice a presence and grab his sheath tightly. Virgil? Who are you? Said the Sparta seriously and coldly, to turn around to look at Issei head on. Seeing that he had a sword in his hand, that made him be more alert. Issei. No one important, just someone powerful, Issei said seriously and a little arrogantly. Virgil? You? A human? I think you're wrong, brat. I only see someone weak, he said, only to feel a sacred aura. He saw the boy, but it wasn't him, but the sword he was holding. But when he saw it, he could recognize its design. You, how do you have the Dragon Slayer sword? Ascalon. Issei. Oh, you mean my good friend. He said to raise the sword in his hand a little. It's simple. This sword, as you call it, is my battle partner. Virgil. That's impossible. Only the true ones who can wield Ascalon are powerful, skilled and noble beings, not a despicable human like you, he said, with a bit of contempt towards the human race. You should give it to me, your weak human shouldn't even exist. Saying those words, the Sparta began to raise his murderous intent to scare that human he was referring to, but he was very wrong when he said that he was weak and that he shouldn't even be born. In a moment, Virgil raised his hand to block by instinct, and when he did, he saw that the human was next to him, still with his arm pressing against him. Virgil couldn't imagine the speed at which Issei moved. No, he couldn't even see it. Virgil saw that Issei's hair was covering his eyes, but he still saw that the sword he held in his free arm was emitting an intense golden aura and glow, just like the arm holding the sword was emitting a strong energy very familiar to the one who radiated anger. But what Virgil could see, or rather feel, was that behind Issei there was an unrecognizable dark presence. When he looked at Issei's face again, he could see that he looked up, and when he did, he saw amethyst green eyes with a vertical iris like that of a rectilinear. Now he could see that he had made a mistake in upsetting the wrong person. Issei. What did you just say, huh? He said with empty eyes, but not only that, electricity began to run through his body and a red and black smoke. Virgil? What? He said with open eyes and then jumped back when he felt the hostility of his now opponent. But then he opened his eyes even wider when he felt his enemy's aura. Yes, I would recognize that aura anywhere. As the red-black smoke cleared, he saw a white-tipped reed with amethyst-green eyes, his left hand wearing a blood-red glove with green gems, and the Ascalon sword has also changed shape. Virgil? You, he said to squeeze his katana tightly and looking at Issei with hatred. Or a dragon, but not just any dragon, right, Sekiryuite? Issei closed his eyes slightly to speak. Issei. Yes, I am the bearer of the Red Emperor Dragon, but he is also my companion and friend. I know you hate dragons because they despised you for your old appearance, but that doesn't interest me now, he said, and then opened them. Now what matters is that you retract what you said, so I will kick your ass to show you that I am not weak. Virgil. HMP, that would be fantastic. Get ready, dragon, because I will cut you into pieces, he said to take a samurai-style stance. Issei. We agree on that, Dark Slayer, he said to also take a different stance, which was to put the sword on his right arm, leaving his left free. At that, two intense auras intensify, the two opponents look at each other coldly, and then. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.